Do you want to hear my story about the chickens or not?
After hours football debate for poachers, private eyes.
Could I ask you something personal?
And pole dancers.
I'm not in market for business, love.
Mike Graham's been all three at some point in his career.
Oh, really, you great big sweaty bush idiot?
And I'll tell you what, you were a better pole dancer than presenter, I can tell you that.
The two Mikes on Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
You worry too much about the time.
Yeah, no, I worry about it.
I mean, how does a chicken show affection towards its owner?
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say that not only have I made it into the show on time, but Mr. Mike Porky Parry is here as well. A very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
I had a very good morning to you, Mike. Yeah, thanks for getting in on time. That's very good of you.
Thank you very much indeed.
I had
a massive triumph.
It's a massive triumph. Well, in the world in which we live in, with the traffic facilities we have in this country,
yes.
And a bit later on in the show, I'll tell you about another mad plan to give over a whole lane of, what's left for motorists on the roads in this country.
Well, not very much for the sound of it.
Not very much to electric vehicles.
Yes.
So you got bikes get their own lane, electric vehicles get their own lane, buses get their own lane. The cars, it raised £76 billion in taxes for the government.
Just get wherever you can.
There'll be places they won't be able to go soon. So there we are.
This is why it's going to be handy to have a four-wheel drive vehicle, so you can actually just drive across the fields.
Yeah,
I think that'll be the way to go.
I saw a very nice four-drive vehicle. Four-drive vehicle. I meant four-drive vehicle.
Yes.
Parked nose to nose with yours tonight. Did you see it?
Oh, really? Was that the BMW?
A BMW 6.
Yes.
Now,
yeah, that's quite a nice car.
I have experienced a BMW 5 on a number of occasions.
Yes, me too.
And you feel that's quite a carriage to get into, but the 6 looks like a tank.
It does. Well, what's interesting is when you go to America, there's the X3, which used to look quite big here, but when you see it over there, it doesn't look big at all. In fact, there it's like a compact car.
I agree.
You have the X5, doesn't even look very big over there.
It's like a smart car.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Now, tell us more about this Kentucky Fried Chicken experience. I'll tell you why. For those who weren't listening to the handover with the guys from the sports bar, Jason and Andy, Porky's bought 25 quid's worth of KFC. Couldn't obviously eat most of it. Then brings it back to his stockbroker belt, palatial pad.
Yes.
And you said you put it in the freezer, but I've got this from Lee, who says, what a plank. You can't freeze KFC, then reheat it. It could kill you or give you a hell of a bad gut.
No, I don't think you can.
So I think you better be careful about that.
No, of course you can,
because chicken is one of the many things that carry salmonella, right? Like, for example, if you don't cook chicken properly, you can get salmonella poisoning.
You sure you can't freeze it?
Well, I'm being told this by Lee. I don't know if you can't. I mean, I've frozen chicken in the past, but I usually freeze raw chicken and then defrost it and then cook it.
I know what you mean, because if it's already cooked, then you can't freeze it and reheat it. I understand that.
That's what he said. I'm not sure if that's true.
Well, I think it could be true, that could be a big worry. But anyway, what happened was...
one of the things that they tell you shouldn't do, right, is if you, for example, have something frozen in the fridge, and then you defrost it and cook it, you shouldn't then put it back in the freezer.
That's right.
But I mean, I've done that in the past, and I've never got anything particularly bad.
Well, this is a bit worrying, and I'm...
I don't want you keeling over from food poisoning.
Well, I totally agree. He was that Lee.
Lee, yes.
I want to thank him for that advice. I'll tell you what. I'm going to throw it all out, because if there's even a 1% chance of poisoning myself.
Well, you're very careful about not poisoning yourself.
Well, I am.
I mean, you wipe the rim of your cup with a tissue.
Yes.
When you're given a cup of tea here at Talksport Towers, you never like to eat anything which is in any way foreign,
dodgy,
because you think that might upset you.
I totally agree.
So I think you better be very careful.
I totally agree. But anyway, to explain why all this happened, right? I mean, I had to get down the coast this weekend. There were things to sort out, and so I got down there Saturday. Everton were at Manchester City, so of course I was plotting their game throughout Saturday afternoon.
Yes,
and all these missed penalties, and Everton taking the lead through Lukaku, and all this kind of stuff.
Actually, I must say it was quite a good goal. It was
a fabulous goal.
I have been asked to try and keep you away from Everton and the Beatles.
Yeah, sure.
After the performance yesterday, where you managed to get a reference to the Beatles in about every 15 minutes.
Well, they form a huge part of people's lives, even to this day. You walk through any shopping centre in this country, go into any shop in this country, I'm afraid that it's very difficult to get through 24 hours a day in Britain and not hear a melody which is attached to the Beatles.
Not if you listen to this show.
Just is.
Well, not if you listen to this show.
Well,
I managed to get through the entire day today without hearing anything about the Beatles until I walked in here.
Well, no, I don't think you did, you see. I don't think you did.
No, I did, actually.
No, you would have heard, for instance...
No, I did not hear anything by the Beatles today.
I can, and you can always get what you want.
That's not a Beatles song.
It's not. But did you know the Rolling Stones' first ever hit was written by Lennon and McCartney?
Yes, I think
I Want to Be Your Man.
Yeah.
Amazing. But anyway, look, the point of my story is...
What is the point of your story? I mean, why on earth are you rolling about
in
a late afternoon or early evening or late evening? I'm not even sure which time this all happened.
It was quite late evening.
Was it quite late evening? So you've been out all day?
No, I'd been to a couple of business meetings in the afternoon to sort things out,
meetings.
which I have to sort out.
Of
yes,
course.
Yes, exactly.
Paperwork.
No, this was property work, actually.
Property work?
Yeah, it was stuff I had to get sorted out.
On a Saturday?
On a Saturday,
My
yeah.
goodness.
It's the only time I could get down there
Where
last
did you
week.
have these meetings?
In
a pub?
Well, I'd call it a hostelry more than a pub in Portsmouth.
Okay.
So I get all that sorted, you know, and then, chewing the fat and all that kind of stuff, except I wasn't chewing anything, really.
So you missed lunch, in other words?
Missed lunch and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, dangerous business.
Yeah, so I thought I'd better get something on the way home.
Yeah.
And I am in a terrible dilemma, because I never know whether to go pizza, Chinese, fish and chips, McDonald's, or, at the end of the high street, the KFC.
Do you not always just go with what you fancy eating?
Well, I never know what I want.
Really?
As soon as I head into McDonald's, I think, this'll do, and then I think, actually, I think I really want pizza. Where's Domino's? So I shoot off and find Domino's.
Right.
And then as I'm walking through the door there...
hamburger and, pineapple and ham?
Yes, they do, yes. And just like going there, I'm thinking, actually, this is a great opportunity to get a takeaway Indian. But as I head towards the takeaway Indian, I then do a U-turn and think, it's Chinese I'm really after. And so it goes on. I walk around in circles sometimes, trying to wait for my brain to... You know, like the ball, the silver ball on the roulette table? I'm just waiting for it to drop into the number.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that will finally
and then
decide.
It'll be a click.
A click, that's right, yeah, and then you go. Anyway, the click sort of happened for KFC. I haven't been there for years.
And is there geographically a plan as well? Because obviously...
Yes, it's all up and down the high street.
That's what I mean. So
yes.
I mean, once you've passed, say, one place, that's then out. Because you don't go back, do you?
Yeah, well, I did a U-turn on one to head back to the fish and chip shop. So that's what I really want.
Right.
But then I didn't.
And presumably these places are heaving with drunks, aren't they?
No. There's not a lot of drunks in that part of the world.
What, in Portsmouth? You having a laugh?
Well, no.
They were when I was there.
Yeah, but you went to the wrong part of town.
Most of them were our show.
yeah, a lot of them were. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, I end up in the KFC and I'm standing in the queue, and I've just realised I don't know how to order in this place. You know,
right.
So I just said,
well, it's become very complicated. Remember that place we were the other day, where they've done away with waitresses altogether, and it's all being done on the screen, on the table.
You sit down at your table and you go through a screen and you order online.
A touch screen.
A touch screen, and you order online in the restaurant, even though the barman is literally 10 feet away behind the bar. Right. You're not allowed to speak to him. You have to order online. Anyway, so what I do is I get to the front of the queue and the guy says, it was a lady, actually, a young lady, and she sounded highly intelligent, so I believe she was a student or something like that.
All right.
Or maybe even a schoolgirl.
Is she attractive?
Well, I don't know, because she had one of those peak caps on, which they wear. I mean, she wasn't unattractive, but I wasn't actually weighing her up as
well, thank goodness for that.
A potential, conquest.
Sex victim.
Yeah, exactly, or anything like that. So I said, oh, hi. And last time I was in
It's a very long, this story, by the way.
Hang on. Last time I was in a KFC, I think it was about 12 years ago.
Do you know, I've only ever been in a KFC once in my life.
There you go.
And I think I was about 18.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And I haven't been there since.
Yeah, so I said, I want some chicken, please, which is a fairly obvious statement to make inside a KFC. And she said, OK, what sort of bucket do you want?
Yeah.
I said, I don't want it in a bucket. I said, I'll have it in a box or something. She said, do boxes.
They don't do boxes anymore?
Well, I don't think so. That's what lady said. I said, oh, OK, well, just
Are you sure you weren't confused at this point?
Well, I'm sure I was. I said, throw some in a bucket, And she said, well, which bucket do you want? And then she pointed up, and I look up, and there's like an array of different options that you can have this and that, and
But
chicken
it's not that
fillet.
complicated, is it?
It looked very complicated
for a man who's
to me.
supposedly straddled the media world for the best part of 40 years, I mean, I think you could probably imagine how you could work out a KFC menu.
So anyway, in the end, I said, look, just give me what's a big bucket cost? She said, well, it didn't cost anything. She said, it cost 12 or 14. I think the maximum one is 17. I said, well, give me... I think she started at 8, that's right. And I said, well, give me a 17 and an 8.
Right.
She said, really? I said, yes. I said, big one and a small one.
Yeah.
I said, that'll do me fine, thank you. She said, that's £25 worth.
Yeah.
I said, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's easy.
And how many pieces of chicken did you get for that?
Loads. So,
well, I mean, roughly how many? I don't know.
40. 40
pieces of chicken?
I reckon, yeah.
And you said you'd asked for it without bones, so was it all like chicken legs?
No, some came... well, there's bones in legs, isn't there, obviously?
Well, there would be, yeah.
And wings.
Yeah.
But the breasts, there's no.
Boneless breast is the only thing, no bone in it.
So anyway, I end up staggering out of KFC with 3 giant brown paper bags.
And were you on the wrong side of the water at this point?
No, I was on the right side of the water.
Oh, so you were in Gosport?
That's right, yeah. Okay. and wandering around with these buckets and litre bottles of Pepsi, which I never drink, which I didn't want anyway. And I was a bit disorientated, actually.
I'm not surprised.
So when I got back home, I had
to be worn out by the time you got back.
I was. My arms were aching. And I had about 10% of what I'd bought. I would say maximum 10%. Uh-huh. And then I thought, I don't know what to do with the rest. So I had to put the rest in the car the following day to get home.
Yeah.
I could barely get it in the boot, to be honest. And then when I got it home...
I'm sure you haven't left any of it in the back of the car.
Definitely not. When I got home, I had a bit more, sort of...
So, this is the next day you ate it?
Yeah.
What, did you reheat it?
I did reheat that.
Yeah.
That's true. I did, but I hadn't frozen it.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I don't know what to do with the rest, so I stuck it all in the freezer. Right. But I think Sean's right. I think I'm going to throw it away. That's a very good idea.
Steve says, no, MG, Porky can reheat as much chicken as he likes. It will be perfectly safe.
You sure?
And Andy says, pop it in the toaster oven to thaw it and heat it there once it hits 350 degrees.
Golly.
And it will be fine.
Oof.
What's a toaster oven?
I don't know. I suppose it's a thing you put toasties in, isn't it?
I don't know.
But
no idea.
Why would you put chicken in there?
Well, you wouldn't put chicken in a toasty. I don't think that's a very good idea.
My God.
If anybody got any better ideas, by all means, send them in at to the two mics, of course. We've got listography coming up. We've got a lot of good suggestions already. We'll need some more. We're going to talk to Billy Garton later on in this hour as well on that game last night at Anfield. Lots more to come on TalkSport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
TalkSport, we are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. Dominic has sent this in from Florida. He says, enjoying a drink as I listen to the show tonight. Keep up the great work. Please can I get a birthday shout-out?
Yes, you can. What's his name?
His name is Dominic.
Dominic, happy birthday, pal. Well done.
Thank you very much indeed.
How
Well done.
How old is he?
He doesn't say.
Okay, well...
He looks to be a guy in his... I would say, generously speaking, 45.
45, okay, 45. It's good age.
It is a good age.
Good age, yeah.
Hey, listen, do you want an update on my shirt scenario? 'Cause I've got one for you.
It's now become, obviously, a theft investigation, yeah?
Well, not only that.
Right.
It has become a theft investigation. I went down to the dry cleaners today to pick up the shirts I put in last Tuesday.
Oh, what? You left them there even though your previous ones have been stolen?
They're never going to give them away to anybody else
again. That's a trust of faith, isn't it?
Well, they're never going to give them away.
Yeah.
It's the dry cleaners in my street. You know, I don't want to have to go somewhere further away.
Go on.
Anyway, they said to me last week, don't worry, we'll never give your stuff to anyone ever again. I went, that's good.
That's very good.
But now I've actually worked out which shirts are missing, right? Because the 7 that I got back are, I wasn't sure which ones exactly I put in. And they include, believe it or not, that dark blue shirt that I bought in America that I wear on the stage with the grey suit?
Yes.
That's gone.
No.
That's one of the ones he's got.
That's an expensive one, isn't it?
He's also got the blue and white striped one. Yeah, that's Calvin Klein. He's got blue and white striped Ralph Lauren, which I wore a lot. He's got the yellow one that we wore for the video. He's also taken a couple of other Ralph Lauren, really nice Ralph Lauren. My pink and white striped one, which is my favourite shirt.
Yeah, I've seen that.
He's done that one.
And no sign of them being returned at all.
Worse than that, today when I went in, they said we've discovered that he actually went to a dry cleaners down the road, which is about a mile away, and took a £500 jacket.
What, the same guy?
Yep.
Because they've compared CCTV, have they?
CCTV, yeah.
The man's a professional thief.
So he's a professional thief.
That is disgusting.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, absolutely disgusting.
And I mean, people have said all the way since last week when I first told the story that actually how easy that could be to do to make money. Because most cleaners will give you stuff. If you haven't got the ticket, if you appear to be convincing.
Yeah, and you have to write down some address with a false mobile phone number.
All they do is ask for your name and number.
So you're now reporting it to the police?
It's been reported to the police, yeah.
It has been reported to the police?
Reported to the police. What I'm hoping to do, by the guy who owns it, I'm hoping tomorrow I'll be able to get my hands on the CCTV and I'm going to tweet out a picture of this guy.
That's excellent. That's what you're going to do.
And maybe a Facebook picture as well.
Have we got a picture of you in one of those shirts? We must have from a stage show.
Oh, almost certainly, yeah.
Well, we must put that out as well.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to find a shirt. I mean, I presume he's either wearing it himself or, I mean, as somebody in the cleaner said today, all you need to do is go somewhere else and get some trousers. He's got a whole outfit for the weekend.
Well, of course he has, yeah. The jacket and the shirts. Yeah, that is disgusting.
It's disgraceful.
Absolutely disgraceful.
I feel violated.
Well, I don't blame you. I do. I do.
And I mean, in the end, it's still 500 quid's worth of shirts. I'm down.
Yeah. It's absolutely disgraceful. And in fact, funny enough, I thought I'd left a pair of trousers in the dry cleaners recently. Yeah. And then I found them in a wardrobe at home. It's one of those sort of situations. You know what I mean?
Well, this is why when I said to you last week, I'm not entirely certain which shirts they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's always a sort of rotation,
of
shirts.
Of course, I agree. But when I went in there, the guy was very helpful, and I said I haven't got a ticket, and I said, "Oh, don't worry," he said you're a regular customer and all that kind of stuff. But then I said, are they them? He said, no. He said, they've been here 2 years.
Yeah.
I said, really?
People leave stuff all the time.
He said, oh, yeah. He said, this rack is those that haven't been claimed. He said, the maximum, the longest we've got them from is 2 years ago.
Really?
I said, well, how long do you keep before you throw them out? He said, to be honest, it's not doing us any harm. We've got the storage space.
Yeah.
And we keep them because sometimes people literally are still regular customers, but forget they put them in, even if it was 2 years ago. Yeah.
So, I mean, do they at any point do something? I mean, apart from just throwing them away, do they do anything with them? Do they sell them? What?
No, I said, he said, we just keep them. He said, and then, eventually we have a clear out and they go out. He said, but it's not a regular 3 months or 6 months. Yeah. We try and help, Well,
a friend of mine who worked in nightclubs for a while, he said the number of jackets and bags and things that get left that nobody ever comes back for.
No.
You wouldn't believe.
Expensive really jackets, I'm told, really expensive stuff. And I suppose if you're dealing with the sort of nightclubs where people come in and, order bottles of champagne at £700 and all that, I suppose it's small fry to them.
Absolutely.
Small fry.
And the funny thing is I lost one shirt previously.
Yes.
And it was when I went down to Piers Morgan's party, because I stayed in this very expensive suite.
You told me.
Because it was the only place they had. And the guy brought my stuff up, and I think he put one of my shirts in a different wardrobe. So when I checked out the next morning, and I wasn't feeling particularly well, as you could imagine.
Yes.
I think I didn't look in the other wardrobe, so I lost a white Ralph Lauren shirt that way.
I've done that loads of times. Yeah. Talking about jackets and shirts in bedrooms, of course, one of the famous stories from Fleet Street was the way that a former editor got found out by his wife that he was actually playing away, involved in a bit of horizontal recreation with his features editor.
Oh, right.
Because she rang him at the hotel. In those days, there were no mobile phones.
No.
So you always had to leave a number where you were in case of family emergencies and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And
or
she,
some news or anything.
Some emergency, the world's breaking up and only I can save it and all that kind of stuff. And she rang the office, to find out which hotel her husband was in, and she was the editor's wife, so they couldn't really refuse to tell her, know. And then she rang the hotel and could you put me through to Mr. So-and-so?
Was this in London or was this somewhere else?
Well,
because quite often they would have hotel rooms in London. I mean, because if the editor's in a hotel room in London, you're his wife.
Yes, that's
you'd
right.
Be wondering what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. No, this was a sort of it was a Saturday night and it was a dinner away.
Ah, yes.
And he'd said that he was
that old chestnut.
Yeah, exactly. He'd said it was something like the Licensed Victors Association annual dinner, and he was the guest speaker and all that kind of stuff. And she rang the hotel, and she said, "Oh, my husband, he's with the Licensed Victors Association." And they said, "Oh, really?" And she said, "Yes, that's the big dinner there tonight." And they said, I'm not aware of that. Might be in the department. Anyway, who do you want? So she said, "Oh, okay, I'll put you through." So she's running through, and a woman answered the phone.
No.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's a terrible mistake to make.
Yeah, a woman answered the phone.
Dear God, one never answered the phone, and certainly don't let anybody else answer it.
Yeah, and this woman started speaking, and then he snatched the phone off her, and he said, "Hello, it's Margaret," whatever his wife's name was.
Yeah.
"Oh, hello, darling, how are you? Who's that?" He said, "It was just the maid bringing my jacket up. I've had my dinner jacket pressed."
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he said, "I'm awfully sorry." He said,
"She wasn't going to buy that, surely."
Well, he said, "I just came back in the room as she was pressing it." She very kindly answered the phone.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. Yeah, bye. Anyway, put the phone down.
Yeah.
The wife at home, then back in, sort of Berkshire or somewhere, goes upstairs and finds the dinner jacket in the wardrobe in the bedroom. He hadn't taken the dinner jacket.
Oh dear!
Because he hadn't made any.
See, it sounds like this guy was making one mistake after another.
Oh, he was. Was
that the end of the marriage?
Complete end.
Was it?
But not only was the end of the marriage, he then had to marry the features editor woman.
Oh God!
Because she too had sort of split up a relationship.
Oh dear!
He was considerably older than her, and
as is often the case.
Yeah, and it was that sort of relationship, and that sort of situation.
Shocking.
But you have to be very careful.
Schoolboy error. I was once in a situation when
What do you mean once?
Through. Well, what in the
you
particular...
mean once of many?
Well, no, I'm going to tell you the story. I was in it was in the midst of the throes of sort of splitting up with my ex-wife,
right?
But it hadn't quite sort of happened yet. And I was working at the time quite a lot in Cardiff, and I was in Cardiff one night.
Oh, I was in Cardiff for you,
completely innocently actually.
Yeah.
I'd been out with some of the guys from the office that worked for me, and I ended up back at the Hilton Hotel, where I often used to stay. And for some reason, she got into her head, I think she'd had a few glasses of Chardonnay, to call me up and just start abusing me over the phone.
Yes.
Because she knew that I was there.
Right.
I can't remember why she knew that I was there, or whether she'd worked it out.
Yes.
Anyway, look, in the end, I thought, this is getting so ridiculous, because the phone wouldn't stop ringing.
Yeah.
I just put it on ignore, so it wouldn't come through.
Yes.
She then started ringing the switchboard and demanding that they put me through, to put her through, and eventually, at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I get a knock on the door. You know, and I'm like, oh, God, you know, who's this? And it was the manager of the hotel.
Right.
And he said, I'm terribly sorry, sir. He said, but if you can't stop this woman ringing you, we're going to have to ask you to leave.
Because she's causing such a nuisance on the switchboard.
Yeah.
Wow, how mad is that?
And I'm like, well, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. He said,
exactly.
well, I don't care. He said, we can't have this.
Yeah.
I said, well, I can't do anything about it. How can I stop her ringing you?
Exactly.
You know, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
In the end, I rang my sister in America. I said, look, would you ring her, please, and tell her to stop this? I'm going to get chucked out of the hotel.
Yeah.
You know, where I stay on a regular basis. This is all very embarrassing. And I didn't even have anyone with me.
No, I know what you mean.
On that occasion.
A colleague of mine, we were in Londonderry. And Londonderry was not a nice place to be in those days, right? It was the height of the Troubles,
Derry,
all this kind of stuff.
as they prefer to call
Derry
it now.
is a certain faction.
You see the time, by the way.
And he got a knock on the door.
Yeah.
This was about 2:30 in the morning.
And sometimes in places like that, you don't open the door, do you?
Well, it wasn't. It was the only decent hotel in town, actually, the Everglades. And anyway, he shouted, I'm sorry, I can't help you, I'm busy. And he said, yes, sir, I know you're busy, but you must come to the door immediately.
Was it Brendan Rodgers?
No, it wasn't Brendan Rodgers, no, it was Northern Ireland. And he was then told, a former colleague of ours from Fleet Street, that he had better leave and get back to Britain as soon as possible.
Yeah.
When he said why, he said because the young lady you're with is the daughter of a very senior member of a terrorist organisation who have a lot of influence in this town, and her father's just found out who she's with. So you'd get out quick. I mean, literally.
Like now?
I mean, within minutes, you know, and that was it. He was away.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Very sensible.
Yes.
Well, sometimes people can be sensible and indeed insensible.
Yeah.
We've got lots more coming up, including Billy Garton. I'm going to tell you about somebody giving a Porky-esque a plot away, by the way, on television earlier on today as well. This is Talk Sport. Talk Sport, we are the Two Mics. Lots more coming up, of course. You can tweet us at the Two Mics. Martin says, I might nick Porky's trousers from the dry cleaners. I could do with some new shorts. That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very harsh, yeah. I don't rise to that sort of thing.
No, exactly right. How about this? Steve says, why not? You've cheated death once before, as far as... he says he was joking. What a plank Porky is. I don't want Porky's demise on my conscience. I think when he said that you could eat it safely.
Oh, I see.
And he says, but you have cheated death before.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to try it anyway, because there is something in that. If it was already cooked and you take it home and then you warm it up, I don't think there's a problem.
Yeah.
But if you take it home and it cools down, you put it in the freezer and then you take it out of the freezer and you stir it up in like a pot of soup or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've got a problem.
Yeah. I think reheating stuff generally, you have to be very careful.
Yes.
Here's one from The Power who says you could reheat it, but he has to do it correctly.
Yeah.
It isn't worth the risk.
No, I agree.
Guts are not good.
I agree.
Freddie says this, so old MG's offspring will be receiving some rotten chicken from Uncle Porky's car boot this Christmas then.
Well, no, not at all. It's more likely, isn't it, that I would share it with the poor unfortunate to get my discarded beer.
Oh, yes.
No, I'm only joking.
Yeah,
no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. No, definitely not.
That could have been a possibility.
Indeed.
And how about this from Woodenhead? McDonald's, a pizza, an Indian, a KFC. Perfect diet for someone with 1/3 of a heart working.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. But you know what it's like. You know, you just decide that if you go home and you cook, it'd be another hour before you eat, so you try and do it instantly.
Yes.
Now,
this is why I always say you should look after yourself better and you should have a better diet and you should take more care about where you eat and when you eat, because, not eating all day and then staggering home with a load of KFC is clearly not the way to go.
It is clearly not the way to go, I agree. What do you think about this? Lanes could be created exclusively for electric cars, giving them priority at traffic lights and the right to go against the flow on one-way streets.
Yes, you see, I find this ridiculous in the sense that...
It is an outrage.
I mean, again, as ever, people get very worked up when you talk about cyclists because some people who are on your side agree with you. A lot of people say we shouldn't keep going on about road tax because actually road tax is not about taxing cars that go on the road and letting cyclists go for free. It's all about emissions, which is true. But, in the end, how many more lanes can they squeeze out of one bit of space space?
I don't know. I've no idea.
I mean, if they tried to do it around here, I mean, one of the reasons I told you yesterday that I was so delayed getting in, even once I'd got out of the M25 nightmare scenario, was that, coming from the Elephant and Castle to here, which is walkable, I would say, in 15 minutes, actually took 15 minutes in a car.
Unbelievable.
Because everything is now siphoned down into one lane. As you say, there's and then they've got these red lights that change about every 4 seconds, where they let 2 cars in and then it goes red again.
It's just disgrace.
And I told you yesterday, I ended up having to go into a bus lane very briefly, so I await my fine, because I'll no doubt get one.
Well, you may do.
Because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have got here till about 1:45.
No, I know. I totally agree. Anyway, it says the proposals are part of a drive to create clean air zones in 5 cities to combat air pollution, which has been linked to 40,000 deaths per year. By who?
Yeah, exactly.
By who?
Yeah.
Who says 40,000 people a year are dying? I tell you what.
The Clean Air Brigade.
80,000 people a year will die if cars are just kept stuck in traffic jams in city centres for hours on end, pumping out the filth from the exhaust pipes that wouldn't be pumped out if they could move at a normal speed, OK?
Yes.
It says the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And by the way, do you remember I warned our millions of listeners years ago that when I was banging on about cycle lanes, it will come to you.
Yes.
It will come to your town.
And it is going to a lot of different towns.
And when
now.
I said congestion charge is a scam that started in London, it will come to you. It's now gone everywhere. So get this. This is how I'm justified in what I said. It says the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs has begun a consultation on the electric car zones in Birmingham, Derby, Leeds, Nottingham and Southampton.
Oh, yeah.
Where it is said high levels of nitrogen dioxide are associated with diesel vehicles. The zones are due to be in place by 2020. This is madness.
It is madness.
This is utter madness.
Well, it's like I said, I mean, there's certain things that you can do, and you could probably make it possible for there to be priority lanes. You know, they have those things in America, carpool lanes quite a lot, which is not a bad idea, where you're on a motorway, and you've got, say, 4 lanes, and during rush hour, there's 1 lane on the far side of the track, as it were, which you can only go in if you've got at least 2 people in the car.
I know.
Now, that's fair enough, because they've got loads of space.
Yeah.
It's a very wide country, and it's a very huge country, and they can build roads as big as you like.
That's right.
But in the middle of towns and cities in this country, you can't keep dissecting up basically one piece of road.
It's utterly
into
ridiculous.
4 different types of use.
Utterly ridiculous.
There's too many buses in most of these places as well.
There's far too many buses with nobody on them.
Yeah.
It says here, ministers, these are the cloth-haired individuals who claim to have the knowledge to run the country, when in fact they don't. Ministers describe the plans as essential to long-term ambition for all new cars and vans to be zero emission by 2040, and for nearly every car and van to be zero emission by 2050. 2050 is 34 years away.
That's true, yeah.
And all the thick-headed, cloth-headed people who are making these plans
Cloth-headed?
now... Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, cloth-headed means wraps a cloth around your head so you're not in touch with what's going on in the world.
I've heard cloth-eared, but never cloth-headed.
No, cloth-headed.
Right.
Are going to be dead by the time this happens. Yeah. And yet they're making plans now for future generations.
Did you not see that climate change conference that was going on somewhere? I think it was, I can't remember exactly where it was. It was over the weekend somewhere. So I was watching it with one of my kids. And they've come out with all sorts of statements and, a mission statement about what we're going to do. And apparently, I can't remember exactly what it is, whether it's power stations or whether it's cutting back on emissions. Basically, in Europe, we're being told by 2019 this has to happen.
Right.
But in China, they can carry on doing it till 2029.
Oh, in China, they'll just carry on doing it forever.
That's fine.
That's not a problem. They're building a new coal-fired power station a week.
But one of the things, apparently, that is causing terrible trouble in the environment is the fact that as countries like China and India become more wealthy, and even in places like Brazil, we might talk to Tim Vickery about this, they're all ordering air conditioning units because they can afford them.
That's right.
So they're now putting air conditioning units into their places where they live. Yeah. And now... all the sort of the stuff that air conditioners spew out, which is very bad for the environment. So it's all coming from these developing countries.
That's right.
And yet we're the ones that are being told we have to somehow, stop using cars.
We're told that you've got to use less fridges in this country, whilst half the world, as you quite rightly say, are building air conditioning units which are 10 times more harmful. A DEFRA spokesman says, Therese Coffey. Right?
Theresa Coffey, yeah.
Theresa Coffey. Right. Apparently, she's an environment minister. She said, we need to tackle air pollution and creating clean air zones will improve the quality of life for people now and in the future.
And in the future, yes. Very much so. Now, I've got something to tell you about, actually, because we're going to talk about Jose Mourinho and Jurgen Klopp in a little while with Billy Garton, former Man United player. But have you seen, or did you see, the appearance today of Mr. Greg Clark, the FA chairman, in front of the House of Commons Select Committee?
I don't think he's got a good public image.
He's got a very bad public image. But I'm not interested in his public image.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is those great shows that we did the night of Sam Allardyce's demise.
That's right.
A couple of shows, I think, one night where before he was fired and the second night when he was fired.
Yes.
Do you remember when I said you're going to have to say to England managers in the future that you can't get any extra work? You can't be paid for doing any extra work.
Yep.
You said it shouldn't happen and it couldn't happen. He actually said today, basically, I would like all paid work to be solely in pursuit of the job as FA manager. And he says in the future, whoever gets the job will not be able to do any extra paid work. So it's happened.
Is that what he's saying?
Yes.
I bet you the first time they offer the job to Arsene Wenger, who says, well, I have contracts with 6 companies in France for who I work.
So you're still sticking with your position on this?
I think they'll allow him to do it, honestly.
No, they won't, because they're under so much scrutiny. They were also called, by the way, an organisation which was filled with institutional failure.
Yes.
Because they should have seen what happened coming.
Yes.
And this was another thing that I said they should have seen, and you said they shouldn't. So, for me, it's a massive victory, I would say.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a massive victory.
I
would say that, to be perfectly honest, your assessment of the situation at the time was flawed.
Well, no, it wasn't, because it's all come true. That's my point.
No, he's had to go in front of MPs and grovel and bend the facts and change everything around to try and make it look like
you're not willing to admit that I was right, then?
No, I'm not willing to admit you're right, because you weren't right.
Yes, I was.
I was perfectly right.
No,
I told
you were
exactly.
entirely wrong. You told me on the night that it all broke that
Yes.
basically the first conversation he'd be having would be with the PR chiefs.
Which is exactly what happened.
Which is not exactly what happened, because he was then summoned to Wembley to be fired.
After they'd spoken to the PR chief and was asked, what will the impact on this be?
You see, just once I'd like you to recognise that sometimes I get these things right.
No,
you're not willing to do that.
No, you didn't get it right on occasion. I've given you credit for getting things right in the past.
I see. Thank you very much. There's an NFL game on tonight as well. It looks like it's the New York Jets at the Cardinals, I think.
Well, don't worry about it, because nobody cares.
Yeah, they do care. I'll be giving you updates throughout the game.
Well, that's just a waste of airtime. It was, in fact, I think, at that meeting today in the House of Commons that Mr. Clark, in fact, confirmed, didn't he, that Mr. Allardyce did get a massive payoff of up to £100 million.
Not 100 million, no.
Up to £1 million, if you listen.
I thought you said 100 million.
No, up to £1 million. And did he actually? I don't think he specified the amount, did he?
He didn't specify the amount, but what he did say was that it was a contractually agreed amount because he was not fired. He was relieved of his duties because of failures of carrying out something to do with the FA executive's policy.
Yes.
So it was all a bit woolly, really.
It was a
but
bit woolly.
as people have said, in these situations, you do quite often have to pay these people off. But he's also said, and you say when he offers the job to Arsene Wenger, by the sounds of it, he doesn't want to offer the job to Arsene Wenger. He said he wants the next England manager to be an Englishman with Premier League experience.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't sound like Gareth Southgate to me.
Well, it does, because Gareth Southgate managed to get Middlesbrough relegated from the Premier League.
Well, yeah, but that's not what you would call somebody with Premier League experience.
Well, he will. He'll say, well, he has got Premier League experience,
but not for long.
Well, I'm
sorry.
If
I was Gareth Southgate, I'd be sitting there going, I don't like the sound of this.
Well, the problem is that there's now both a media campaign underway who have been briefed from inside the FA and a campaign within the FA that if Southgate gets a decent result against Scotland, which, I mean, should be a prerequisite for any manager in any form of life to beat a relatively weaker team because they're a smaller country.
Yeah.
I mean, goodness gracious, we've only got to beat Scotland, the job's his. Well, I mean, so far he's had 2 unsatisfactory performances.
2-0 against a team which is part-time.
And a draw.
0-0 against a team
137th in the world or something, Slovenia?
Well, isn't that... Yeah, I didn't even know if they're 137th.
I think they are, yeah.
Well, they were in the final of the Euros, so they can't be that far down.
Well, I think they were.
Anyway, pretty bad business anyway. But if I was Gareth Southgate, I'd be reading the runes of his statement and saying, I don't think he wants me to get the job. So he might as well quit now. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Sport. We are the two mics. We've got lots more coming up. A bit of listography coming up in the show. So keep sending your ideas in. You can tweet them at the two mics. #listography.
Got a few already.
We've got quite a lot actually.
Your 3 favourite historical incidents.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll go through them, shall we? At some point. A couple of quick tweets. We're going to talk to Billy Gartner very shortly about that game last night at Anfield. Alex says this. We've trying to accommodate bikes in buses with their own lanes. It's mental. They should build separate roads for environmentalists. And Ricky says it's unreal what they're doing in Bristol at the moment, digging up entire city roads for a metro bus lane. There are roadworks basically everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't surprise me at all. And this is for what? For a new metro bus lane system?
Yeah.
My God.
I know, it doesn't stop. And I mean, the amount of money they spend on this stuff when they're supposedly not
unbelievable.
It's just ridiculous. Anyway, let's talk about something slightly more entertaining, shall we say. Edifying possibly as well. Liverpool against Manchester United. It was being billed as the game of the season so far. Didn't quite live up to it. Billy Gartner, former Man United player, is here. Billy, very good morning to you.
Good afternoon from sunny San Diego.
Sunny San Diego. Love it.
Let me ask you something, Billy, before we start on the football, because it's a pretty dull game, to be fair.
Yeah.
What's San Diego like when you get, because I don't know how often you get back here, but in terms of, driving and bus lanes and cycle lanes and all that kind of thing, what's it like?
It's actually quite convenient and well organised. For me, the infrastructure and the roadworks is probably second to none. I mean, San Diego's a pretty new city, so there's a lot of that's one of the attractions of it. To be honest, it's a nice looking city because everything's particularly new and pretty well organised and dialed in, and so there's not a lot of traffic and cycling and bike lanes are huge. So. Yeah, no complaints.
But they can manage. They can manage it. They can manage it in those kind of modern cities. In places like London and Manchester, it just becomes an absolute nightmare because there's no space to expand anything, and everybody's kind of squeezed into one little bit.
Yeah, I think also it's what you've been used to. It's like the culture here has been designed around this way of life, and in England and back in some of the big cities, it's like you're having to you have to change everybody's mindset about it, whereas here it's just, it's designed with that in mind, and so everybody just gets on with it because that's the way that it's planned. And obviously I'm back in Manchester and London a lot. It just does. It seems like you're always having to you're peeing in the wind sort of thing to get everybody to buy into what life is, the way it should be. So.
That's right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the game last night. It was being billed as the sort of clash of the Titans, if you like, for want of a better word, Jose Mourinho against Jurgen Klopp. They kind of cancelled each other out in the end, didn't they?
It was the classic anticlimax. I mean, it was... I've heard it a million times before big games, final games and derby games and stuff, and this was the exact same. It was like two great teams, big rivalry, big tradition, two, giant... managers going head-to-head for the first time in the Premier League, Liverpool flying, Man United like wobbling, and then it just became a damp squib. I mean, it was, in terms of a spectacle, it was a non-entity. But I think, from my perspective, when I watched it with a footballer's eye, if you will, and thought that, I thought United got the tactics spot on. I thought they actually, they came there not to lose. And I think if you look probably at the fixtures, they would probably identify that one as a game where they would rather not lose than be cavalier and try and win it.
I mean, Billy, do you get the impression that Jose Mourinho's past his best? So with a team that's also past its best, the Manchester United team he's got to rebuild, he looked to me like he'd gone out there tonight to keep what he had at the start of the game. That was 1 point. And he reminded me of a heavyweight boxer who just sort of lolls about on the ropes and hopes that he doesn't get hit too badly and he can take a draw out of the ring.
I think, for me, the fact that they have not got off or got amassed the points that maybe they anticipated is making him change his strategy at this moment in time. I think they're almost trying to, think about it, they played Leicester, they won, they played Stoke, they tied, they drew, and then they've got Liverpool and then Chelsea. And so I'm sure that they looked at those 4 games and identified a specific number of points.
Definitely.
And to me, that's what he's doing. He's strategizing through these games rather than allowing the team to be maybe as fluent and as cavalier as maybe a Ferguson team of the past would have been. But, I think at this moment in time, it's very much about amassing points as opposed to the quality and the exciting performance, and that's the way I see it. I see it a very strategic approach. He's got them maybe doing things that they've not ordinarily been used to doing before, and that is buying into a system that works. Right. I mean, Liverpool, let's have it right. I mean, I thought they were pretty poor first 25, 30 minutes. I mean, they really offered nothing. And I think that was part of the game plan on United's part, was to not let them get that gung-ho, cavalier start, and therefore I think that allowed Mourinho to manage his team through the game better.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I was listening to Martin Keown after the game, and he said that this was really the first proper Jose Mourinho managed side at Manchester United for the first time this season. Would you agree with that? That he's sort of finally got them working the way that he wants them to work, and with Herrera kind of at the centre of it all?
Well, I'd say so, but I'd sort of agree with it. I'd also say, though, that, as I said earlier, if they'd have won their last 3 games, losing the game against Liverpool is not as big a deal. But having to look back at the Stoke game, which was in my eyes was a game that they identified as a win. They didn't get the win. They're going to Liverpool. They probably identified that as a draw. And now they're going to Chelsea on the weekend and probably thinking that they'll come away from there without a defeat. I think it made him change his mindset. I mean, to me, there's been some games that he's been able to be sort of more adventurous and more attack-minded because he's probably felt like he's got, the measure of the opponent. But, I mean, as we all know, Liverpool have really got a great attacking threat. And I think he came today to stifle that attacking threat, and I think it works.
Sure. Where are you on the Wayne Rooney scenario? I mean, he's obviously been dropped by Jose Mourinho from the starting lineup.
It's his 4th game.
He's probably going to be dropped possibly from the next England game. Nobody's very sure. I mean, what do you reckon is the position with Wayne?
Look, I'll tell you exactly where I am on it, because I'm 100%. What's happening to Wayne Rooney is an absolute disgrace. Not in terms of him not playing, but the media coverage and the bad publicity and the barracking that he's receiving from opposing fans and England fans and pundits is just pathetic. And I say that with I'm here in America. I've lived here for 15 years. If you had a person with that status, they'd carry them on the field every game on their shoulders and carry them off on their shoulders. They wouldn't be berating the guy that's got the most goals for England, that's got more caps, than anybody else, that's got, this glowing resume. I mean, he'd be a national treasure, and in England, it's just pathetic.
Well, Billy, I have to, take issue. I have to take issue with you there. Nobody's mounting a campaign against Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney's getting a lot of sympathy in this country, believe me.
But he was booed at Wembley, though, wasn't he?
Well, he was booed by some opposition fans, but in this country...
No, he was booed by England fans.
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a moment.
They were playing Malta. You're getting booed by Maltese fans.
There were Maltese fans there.
Really?
I do not believe for a moment that he's the victim of any sort of campaign. Amongst fellow professionals, he's highly respected. Certainly the Manchester United fans love him. He got cheered very loudly by the United fans who were at Anfield tonight. And the only thing you have to say is, Billy, that he has become a story and an issue and a problem for successive managers because he's getting older, and we all get older. He's 31 later this month.
I'm going to tell you the exact mindset that people should have.
Yeah.
And that is that when Ryan Giggs got older and Paul Scholes got older and Michael Carrick got older and Alan Shearer got older, people accepted that coming off the bench or playing 1 out of every 3 or 4 games was an acceptable role. And no one's even giving that a thought. They're not giving him that the license to say, hey, I mean, remember, his career started at 16, which is 4 or 5 years earlier than most. And so, he's in the twilight of his career. But he can still play a role, and he can still be an impact player. And if he's not playing every single game, it's nothing different than what went on with Giggs and Scholes, and nobody lambasted them. I mean, it was the guy's a legend. The guy's been a fantastic servant. He's never ducked on an England call-up.
Yeah, but nobody's disputing any of that. Nobody's disputing any of that.
But I think it's I think a lot of it's being driven. I think a lot of it, Billy, is being driven by the fans as well. But listen, we've got to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for taking time to talk to us. Billy Garton there, former Man United player himself.
Don't be a hero.
Why are you singing that?
Well, that was the Black Lace song, wasn't it?
Black Lace or Paper Lace?
It was...
Wasn't it Paper Lace?
No, I think it was Black Lace.
No, I think Black Lace are those books that your girlfriend writes.
What?
The girl that you're going out with. Sarah.
What are you on about?
She used to write Black Lace books.
Oh, that'd be
erotic
ridiculous.
Fiction.
Don't be ridiculous. No, it was Paper Lace. I've just remembered. Yeah, Billy, don't be a hero.
Yeah, exactly.
And the night they shot Chicago down, was that the same one?
I don't think it was Chicago.
The night they shot...
it's something like that.
Yeah,
Once again, you're slightly off.
Yeah.
Ben says this. MG was spot on, Ray, his prediction on FA action to prevent England managers doing other work. The fact that Porky can't accept this is because under his brash exterior, he's very insecure and can't stand his colleague being right and he himself being wrong.
999.
Don't call that number.
All I have to see that woman who was involved in the Kardashian raid, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
She tried to dial the American emergency number in France.
Yeah, well,
she kept ringing it saying these goddamn phones don't work.
We've got to stop for a moment. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We've got a bit of listography coming up a little bit later on. Maybe in this hour we'll choose a particular subject.
Yes, please.
Some very good ones out there. Now, I wanted to bring your attention to something that happened yesterday morning on This Morning, the TV show.
Oh, yes.
Because you will, of course, remember Helen Worth from Coronation Street.
Indeed.
She went on This Morning, right, and gave away the plot.
Right.
Which you're not supposed to do,
to
right?
Coronation Street.
To Coronation
future
Street.
plot. Yeah, go
she
on.
gave away the future plot, which I think then transpired that it came out, I think, in tonight's show. I don't know if you saw it. Where apparently Ken Barlow suffers a stroke.
Dear me.
Yeah. And there was no Porky siren. I mean, it's very Porky-esque.
Yeah.
She went on and there was a huge kind of Twitter storm about it because people were saying, I think she's just given away the upcoming story on Coronation Street. I mean, they're supposed to guard these things very closely, aren't they?
Yes, indeed they are.
I mean, when we was told by people who were in EastEnders and in Coronation Street that they didn't ever see the scripts that were way ahead of their own time.
It's bad news, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you think that's gone out just... when's Porky Vision? Is that tomorrow night?
Porky Vision is Wednesday night.
Oh, it's Wednesday night, is it? Yeah, what's tomorrow night then?
Tomorrow night is Ask Porky.
Oh, Ask Porky, that's right. Yeah, okay.
It's not hard to keep this up, you know. You've been doing it for about 2 years.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Don't worry, we'll keep up with it.
No, the actual plot line went out last night.
I see.
But she gave it away in the morning.
Oh, in the morning?
Yeah, before the show went out.
Not good. You wouldn't get me doing that.
Well, you do it all the time.
Well, I try not to.
By the way, I did watch the last episode of The Fall.
Did you?
Over the weekend.
What did you think?
A fascinating show.
Yes, indeed.
Very, very interesting.
Indeed.
I'm beginning... Well, I'm not saying I'm siding with you, but there is something a bit odd about the nurse.
It certainly is.
I can't see that she's going to be somehow revealed to be involved as the killer, because he's clearly the killer.
Oh, no. She's either going to spring him from prison or she's going to kill him.
Yeah.
That's my view.
She looks at him in a very odd way.
Sorry, spring him from hospital before they get him into prison.
Yeah.
Or she's going to kill him. I mean, she's on one side or the other. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, we shall see.
Now, something I want to say to you, actually. I learnt this earlier on today. We're going to Liverpool on November the 4th.
The O2 Academy, yes.
O2 Academy. It's bonfire night. Tickets selling like hot cakes, literally. So delighted. We're going to have a bumper crowd there. And
or would you say, rather than hot cakes, what's the local sort of cake delicacy that they have in Liverpool?
Well, a pan of scouse, like.
A pan of scouse?
Pan of scouse.
What's that?
Well, it's a pan of scouse, isn't it? It's like a meat stew.
Oh, is it? Oh, right,
yes,
okay.
yes, that's right, yes.
Is that where the origin of the term scouser comes from?
Well, I think it's the other way around. I think because generically people that are known as scousers think a pan of scouse is like the local delicacy, you know.
Oh, right, okay.
But I'm not a historian.
It should be a great night.
Not an historian. But anyway, look, I'll tell you what I was going to tell you. The three buildings which front the River Mersey,
yes,
which was once the biggest trading port in the world, are called the Three Graces.
Oh, yes.
And they are, of course, the Livy Building, which is very, very famous, and the Cunard Building next door. And I told you once at my school, at the King's School Chester, I went to, in my class, was the son of the chairman of Cunard, who worked in that building.
Oh, yes.
And the third one, I think, was the Merseyside sort of Port Authority building, you know. Anyway, the most prominent one...
And are they all still being used as they were, or
absolutely.
Not really?
Well, they're still commercial buildings.
But Cunard's still in there, or not?
No, Cunard not still in there, but the Cunard buildings.
There.
That's right, yeah, the Cunard buildings there. But anyway, point of my story is that the Livy Building is being sold for the first time in its existence.
Oh, is it?
And I think it was built about 120 years ago. And apparently, of all the commercial buildings in Britain, it is the longest surviving building in the ownership of the people who built it without being sold since.
And who are those people?
Well, it was called the Liver Building because of the, as I understand it, the Royal Liver Insurance Company occupied it. Yeah. But that was taken over by, I think it was another insurance company called the Royal London. Okay. Some years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. And but all the people inside the building, that's just the ownership of the building. The people in the building are still there. They have leases and all that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, it's changing hands just as we descend upon the city to cheer people up.
I see.
With a 2 Mike show.
Well, there you are.
On the night.
Well, unfortunately, we won't have a lot of time to go around the Liver Building, are we? Because we have to come straight back in the morning to come back to Talk Sport.
That's
to do
right,
the warm-up,
indeed.
Which is going to be a little bit tricky.
No, it's not. No, it's going to be good as long as you get up in time.
I'll get up in time, but I probably won't be feeling brilliant.
No. Well, I want you to feel better. If you could curb your excesses, the night before, and you always seem to think you've got to be bladderated to go on stage.
That's not true.
I mean, I'm not sure.
Absolutely not true.
I'm not sure that's a wise thing.
No, but the thing is, there's a bottle of champagne on stage, so during the course of the show, there tends to be some imbibing that goes on.
There is a bit of imbibing going on.
That does happen. Do they know who's going to buy the building, or is it still up for grabs?
I think it's up for sale, and it'll be.
Might be somebody Chinese.
It could be. The Chinese have bought an awful lot of property in this country. I mean, to be honest, it's cosmetic because the people who work in the building won't know. Yeah. And don't care really who owns the building as long as they've got a contract with a lease on it and they're there for the next number of X years.
It's a bit like when
they don't worry about it.
The Lord Hollick bought the Daily Express.
Yes.
And Express newspapers. In a building which is not far away from us here.
That's right.
Before they moved out.
It's just round the corner.
And he brought in a load of consultants, right? Yeah. And the consultants were there for something like 6 months, charging some ludicrous amount of money, like £30,000 a day.
Yeah.
He went through the entire sort of gamut of various different departments. He had them going through all these different departments and quizzing. He used to quiz the photographers and say, why are you not out taking pictures? Instead of sitting here at a table. To which they said, well, what do you want us to take pictures of?
That's right, yeah.
Well, shouldn't you just be out there taking pictures? And they were like, no, that's not how it works.
No, exactly.
And the last company they had done work for was some kind of brewery.
Really?
They knew nothing about newspapers.
Fairly appropriate.
But their recommendation to Hollick was to basically to get rid of the newspaper and sell the building.
Yeah, that's right.
And they said that's the best way you're going to make money.
That's the way you're going to make money.
Yeah.
Which wasn't really in the spirit of things, was it?
Not quite.
It was the famous Beaverbrook Daily Express.
Well, it was.
Which is still going.
In those days. It's still going, but it's a bit of a shadow of its former self.
Well, all newspapers are, because the circulations have dropped so dramatically because of other methods of communicating on a mass basis have changed so dramatically. In the old days, the old days I talk, there was only one way of communicating with the outside world, and that's through a newspaper. The news bulletins on the television were so rare.
Yes.
I mean, everybody used to rush home at night to see the 6 o'clock news, because if they didn't, they wouldn't then get any news until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
That's right.
And there was nothing in betwing.
No, exactly right. There was no place to go look for it.
Exactly.
How about this from Dazza, who says, I thought Bonfire Night was November the 5th. Not the 4th, Porky.
Well, all I'm saying is it's going to be an action-packed night, a fizzing firework of a show on the stage at the O2. And, Bonfire Night, which comes the following night, will be a disappointment by comparison.
Yes, well,
that's all I can tell you.
Also, all the ways around Bonfire Night, there's always sort of impromptu firework displays going on. I mean, normally it'll start probably about on the Wednesday, won't it?
Yes.
Because where I am in London, I've got quite a vast, expansive view over towards Crystal Palace.
Indeed.
And you can always see fireworks going up
for
about 3 days before the 5th starts.
And about a week afterwards.
Yeah.
This is a great one here from old Stumpy Dog, as he calls himself.
Steve.
Yeah, he says, what would happen to Porky after eating a reheated bucket of fried chicken?
What would happen?
He would kick the bucket.
He probably would.
I like that.
You've got to be very careful.
Yeah.
Has this put you off going back to KFC, by the way?
No, but it's put me off freezing chicken.
Was it good chicken? Did you taste it?
I think it was very nice. Yeah. And the batter that they put it in has some special sort of formula, some special recipe, some special spice in it. And I have to say, it was very, very nice. I just bought too much of it. So.
I don't particularly have a reason for never going there. It was just that I was put off a few years ago. Do you remember there was a story about how somebody had bought some Kentucky Fried Chicken, and when they got it home, there was a chicken's head, which had been very nicely wrapped in the special spices and the sauce, and you could see it very clearly. The comb on the top of his head and everything.
No, thank you.
And obviously it had just fallen in by accident.
Oh, I don't know why you told me that story.
Well, that's why
terrible.
I don't go there.
I hate that story.
That's why I don't go there.
I've never heard it before, but I hate it now.
Maybe you should have a look at some of the stuff in the freezer and see if you've got chicken's head in there.
No!
We're going to talk to Tim Vickery coming up very shortly. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Tim Vickery coming up in a little while. We've got some listography to choose as well. If you haven't had a chance to send us a suggestion that's been picked up, by all means do it. Hashtag it listography and send it at the two mics. Or indeed, you can do it on Facebook, on our Facebook page, where I posted yesterday actually one of our brand new pictures that we've got from Junior, who here at Talk Sport has done some fantastic new pictures for us.
Yeah, can I just tell people, Junior is now the official photographer to the two mics, and he's produced a a portfolio.
He has
of fantastic pictures, which will be published for the first time on the new Two Mics website. Which,
well, when you say published for the first time, we have published one now.
Well, we have published one, but in full, I meant. The range of pictures published in full on the new Two Mics website.
Yeah, because he was taking pictures of us in the studio.
That's right.
Taking pictures of us outside the studio.
Indeed.
I'm particularly partial to this black and white one, where people have said you look like somebody from the Peaky Blinders.
Well, that's
wearing that cap.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that was kind of the intention, really, because as you know... By the way, when did the Peaky Blinders start?
When did it start?
Yeah.
Well, we've had 3 series, right?
I could swear it started as far back as 2010. Because I remember going to a particular England game, right, and I was in the Ibis Hotel, which is at the bottom of the slope that goes round the back of Wembley when you go through the media entrance, so to speak. And I was just having a quiet drink there before going up to take my seat on the in the gallery, the TV gallery.
Gantry.
The gantry, I'm sorry, yeah. Well, it's the gallery behind the gantry, if you see what I mean, because they weren't actually working.
Do you not get the heebie-jeebies going on? You don't like heights, do you?
Well, no, but it's built right back into the stadium. You're not hanging over the pitch or anything like that. And I was just having a quiet drink, and the guys came and said, "Hi, Mike," and I said, "Hello, fellas, how are you?" And they said, we're from Dipshew. I said, no. He says, we're from Nechells. Nechells, a district of Birmingham.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And I said, yeah. He said, we're the Peaky Blinders, Porky. We know you love the Peaky Blinders.
And who were these guys?
They were England fans who'd come down from Birmingham for the night for the England game.
They weren't actually members of the cast.
No. They were just local Birmingham people.
What I remember,
proud of the fact that it was based there.
My first memory of it is when you went along with Mr. Brazil to sort of a party to launch the second series, I think.
I think that was to launch the third series, to be honest. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying.
I'm told it was 2013 was the first actual airing of it.
2013?
September 2013. So maybe it was a different England game, though, that you were at, and maybe that happened after that. I mean, I remember I remember Alan Brazil having the guy on, the writer.
Oh, definitely,
of the show.
Yeah.
The creator of the show.
Yeah, that's
for the first time. It must have been
Stephen King.
Not Stephen King.
Stephen Knight. I'm sorry, Stephen Knight.
Stephen King's the horror story
writer. Yeah, that's
Christine,
right,
he wrote, didn't he? And Carrie, I think, as well. Did you ever see Carrie? Talking of buckets, that's where she ends up with a bucket of pig's blood on her head.
Oh, no, thank you. No. I don't want to watch things like that.
Have you ever seen a horror film?
Yes.
What was the horror film you saw?
The one where the little girl's head twists round the 360 degrees.
Well, The Exorcist.
The
little girl.
Yeah. Was she?
Well, I suppose she was a little girl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to... The other horror film I saw was The Devil Rides Out.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's years ago.
Yeah, it was. It was the Angel of Death gallops into the room at the end, and that was quite frightening.
Those were those old films with... Was Vincent Price in that
that's right, yeah.
But there was always a bit of topless activity going on, wasn't there? Was that the reason for watching
Well, it was a bit of, jiggery-pokery, so to speak. Yeah. And also a lot of old cars, like old Rolls-Royces and all that kind of stuff, in which people drove around, and that's all I remember.
Yeah.
But... No, I'll tell you what I wanted to talk to you about.
What?
Now, we mentioned Coronation Street, didn't we?
We did.
Because you said that somebody gave the plot away.
Gail.
Gail, that's right, yeah, Gail.
It's a pretty big character.
Now, I think you'll find that we're caught between two sticks when one of the most famous TV characters of all time in the soaps, Jean Alexander, died, sadly, and she, of course, played Hilda Ogden.
Hilda Ogden, yeah.
And she had a fascinating life. So over the weekend, I caught up on some of the obituaries, because I like to avail myself of the facts and all that kind of stuff. And she was a very unusual woman. She was single. All her life,
yeah. Never married.
Never got married.
A spinster.
A spinster who openly admitted she was a virgin all her life.
Really?
She never had any sexual relationships with men.
Right.
She said, I had men friends when I was younger, but I never wanted to take it beyond
like Anne Widdecombe.
Yeah, like Anne Widdecombe, that's right, yeah.
What's ever happened to her, by the way?
Oh, she lives on Exmoor and writes occasionally. I think she writes a column in the Daily Express, we were talking about a few minutes ago, and does programmes and all that kind of stuff.
It's 7-3, by the way, now to the Cardinals against the New York Jets.
Don't worry, nobody cares. and anyway, what she said was, I lived at home all my life with my cats. I preferred my cats to any other relationship with a human being. She was, in fact, a misanthrope in many ways.
Sounds a bit sort of eccentric.
Well, not eccentric, but she was a very determined individual woman. Now, what I didn't really know was that she actually came from Toxteth in Liverpool.
Is that right?
And Toxteth is famous in almost everybody's mind, Liverpool, for being the centre of the Toxteth riots.
That's right, yeah.
Which I covered for 3 days in 1981, I think they were. And
they were in 1981, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
The Summer of Discontent.
That's right. City was ablaze and all that kind of stuff. But she decided from the age of 15, after seeing some plays locally where she grew up in Liverpool, the Liverpool Playhouse, she wanted to be an actress. So she self-determinedly went ahead and did it. But she was a woman of enormous sort of strength of character.
Yeah. Well, I saw a great interview with her, actually, around the time that the day after she died or something like that, where she talked about how, in the beginning of Coronation Street, it was a very kind of flat sort of show.
Yes.
And she started herself to kind of, if you like, improvise on the lines.
She
and used to sort of try and bring some more character to her character.
She invented the look of Hilda Ogden.
Yeah.
She saw some Hollywood film in which somebody put a scarf around their neck. She combined that with curlers in the front of her head and that. But the most amazing thing was about how single-minded she was. She starred for many, many years with her on-screen husband, Stan, who was played by Bernard Ewins.
Yes, because I was going to say, I mean, on the show, she was married, wasn't she?
She was married on the show, yes. And he was a big fat chap, and he was a bit of a slob. He used to come in, fish and chips all over his face and drink too much beer and all this kind of stuff. In one particular plot, he got so drunk one night in the Rose, he thought he'd won the pools, as it was in those days, and he bought everybody a drink all night and then found the following morning he hadn't. And he didn't have any money to pay the bill and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the point of my story is that during the time that she was there, in fact, I think it was 3 years before she left, and it was one of the reasons why she left, Bernard Ewins died. So what happened was they had to write into the show, into the the plot lines in Coronation Street, that Stan had died. You see what I mean?
Okay.
So on the day this was filmed, like, everybody is in tears. You know, because they're doing.
The cast are in tears.
Well, of course they are, because the plot of the show is that Stan has been killed.
Yeah.
And it's terrible, and somebody's going to knock on Hilda's door and tell Hilda, and she bursts into tears and all kinds of. Everybody's crying.
Right.
But when they said cut, when the director said cut, everybody in the production unit was still crying because Bernard Ewins, the actor, had died. Right. And they were improvising this in the plot of the story.
How did they kill him off in the show?
I can't remember. I'm not sure whether... I think he died of a heart attack. I think he died of, when he was out, he just died, and that was kind of stuff. But anyway, the thing is that all the production cast were crying, all the actors and actresses were crying, the tea lady was crying, everybody was crying, except Jean Alexander.
Why?
Because she was unemotional about it.
Really?
And when the director said cut, she stood up and said, "What are you all crying for? We're only acting."
Yeah.
And completely detached herself from real life and what she was doing as a job, acting as Hilda Ogden.
She sounds a bit like you.
What do you mean? Sounds
she
a bit
sounds
like
a bit
me.
like you, because that's how you would be.
Oh, rubbish.
Yeah, you would. You
Don't
wouldn't be crying. You said you've never cried.
Well, I haven't cried. I can't remember crying anyway.
Well, that's what I mean.
So I must have done, I suppose, when I was a kid.
I don't think so.
But I thought that was amazing.
And did she not really act in anything else? I mean, that was her sole sort of role.
Funny
was she ever in anything else?
Absolutely. Funny you should say that, because when as I say, I read some of her obituaries, I didn't realise that she then had a space of about 3 years when she made a few star appearances in well-known programmes. Yeah. But then, believe it or not, spent 16 years in Last of the Summer Wine.
Did she?
Yeah.
Well, you see, that's another show that I didn't get. I didn't get it. I don't really get Coronation Street. I've never watched it.
Yeah.
I don't really get Last of the Summer Wine. I know there are people who will say that we should get that because actually the people in it are a bit like us.
Yes.
Which I reject out of hand. I don't think the Last of the Summer Wine is funny. Yeah. I don't think any of the people in it are particularly funny, unfortunately.
No, I never got Last of the Summer Wine. Maybe it's because I'm not Yorkshire.
Yeah.
But I got Coronation Street from the start.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like the houses that were the houses in the same area that I grew up in. We grew up in a semi-detached house.
Right.
But
I've seen the house you grew up in.
Yes.
It doesn't look much like the ones in Coronation Street.
Well, no, but
it looks quite nice.
Yes, but that was built in a little close off the main area of town called Hull, where all the houses were like Coronation Street houses. I mean, they just were.
Sure.
And
you can still see them. I mean,
of course you
in
can.
parts of Liverpool now, you can see them. In parts of Manchester, I'm sure, as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, just to go from one end of the showbiz spectrum to another,
yes.
I'm just looking at a piece here about how Justin Bieber is moving to the
unbelievable.
UK and has bought a 108,000. And I think I know this house. I think it's in Bishop's Avenue.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I know Bishop's Avenue. I went out with a lady from Bishop's Avenue once, as I told you. I ran into the back of her dad's Rolls-Royce Corniche.
It's either there or Whittington Road, the one that goes parallel to it.
Yes, I do.
It looks like it's that kind of brick, that kind of very red brick they use up there.
And built probably in the 1920s.
Probably, yeah.
And have you seen the inside of it,
Yeah, massive indoor swimming pool.
I know.
It's got a cinema room,
a
bathroom with 12 types of Italian marble.
I know.
So I'll make you jealous. You've only got one type of Italian marble.
Certainly have.
Plenty of room for guests. The dining room that has what appears to have a table for about 10 people.
Yeah.
So £108,000 a month.
You see, if I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't pay £108,000 a month to rent a house. I'd pay £1 million to buy the house.
Yeah, but you wouldn't get that for $1 million, would you?
No, of course you wouldn't. But I mean, I'd pay $1 million. Over a year, he's going to spend over £1 million.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're making, 25, 30 million a year, I suppose it's not much.
I just don't understand why people spend all that money on renting houses.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Well, maybe because you don't have to worry about anything. Because if you're renting at that kind of level, anything goes wrong, you don't have to organise it. You don't have to worry about calling people.
Could be. Could be.
So
yeah,
anyway.
I mean, I've often thought that actually I don't know why I hold so much property because. It's dead money. It's dead money. You see what I mean?
Well, it isn't really dead money because when you sell it, it becomes live money.
I know, but I might die before I get the chance, and then somebody else gets it all. So,
well, what are you going to do with all the money? Spend it all on Kentucky Fried Chicken?
yeah. I'll get a bigger bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yeah.
Somebody's actually tweeted a massive bucket, which is brilliant.
I know, yeah. It's a bit harsh, isn't it? Yeah.
Peter says, by the way, KFC is also known as KFP in these parts, P meaning the Sky Rat variety. I think he's talking about pigeons.
Oh, dear me.
And Robbie says, did you say it was Nechells? Is that how you pronounced it?
Yeah, Nechells.
He says it's next to Villa Park. He says the Peaky Blinders are from Small Heath.
Oh, okay.
Birmingham City Ground.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
Well, you should have known that.
Well,
they're supposed to be the expert Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, well, they're from Birmingham, aren't they? So, But, I mean, it's not even filmed in Birmingham anyway.
Yeah.
It's filmed somewhere in Liverpool.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll come back to that because the fourth series must be out soon. Fourth series of Homeland's coming soon as well. Well, in the new year anyway. This is Talk Sport. Coming up next, Tim Vickery. Music can only signify one thing, and it is that Tim Vickery is in Rio de Janeiro. He's in Brazil. We're going to talk to him about a great many things. Let me just read you this first. Corrie is a great show, says Def. As a proud Mancunian, we watch it as if it's a comedy version of real life. Well, I must say, I don't get it. I don't know why. Maybe just because I'm not from Manchester.
Yeah.
Tim, a very good morning to you.
Yeah, I've never got it either. I don't think I've ever watched an entire episode. But what I have done, just to go back to your early discussion on housing and so on, what I've done is grown up in council flats.
Yeah.
Bring them back.
Yeah.
Cheap rents, secure tenancy. It's every bit as much your home as a place that you've bought with a mortgage that you're going to pay off in 80 years or whatever.
Yeah.
The biggest disaster, in my view, what happened to our country in the last few decades is a disgraceful demise of council housing. Bring it back.
Because they were sold. I mean, the people, unfortunately, who bought the council houses or bought the council properties did very well. But the trouble is, many of them then sold them at a massive profit.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
and then got themselves back on the council list.
Yeah.
So that as the properties disappeared. It wasn't actually new people that were getting them. It was some of the same people who, in the meantime, had made a bucket load of money. So the idea that any government would sell them off without building more seems mad, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but it was all about promoting the ability of people to stand on their own 2 feet. Tim, that was the whole idea of that policy in those days.
It's rubbish. And you could see it in the 1930s. This was explicit in the USA in the 1930s. The idea that the worker who has a long-term mortgage will be less inclined to go on strike. These days, the system needs people as consumers. People cannot consume when they're paying such an absurd percentage of their income to cover their rent or cover their mortgage.
Yeah.
It's become totally counterproductive. It's a nonsense.
Exactly
right. You could well be right.
You could well be right. Now, I didn't know we were going to talk about Thatcherite policies, but that's why we get you on, Tim, because we never know what we're going to talk about. Now, what's been going on in your part of the world before we get to the Champions League? Tell us the big stories.
Well, one I thought you might like is, remember Mr. Anderson from Manchester United?
I do remember him, yeah.
Yeah, and for a while you thought he was going to be something, and then he seemed to slip into a comfort zone when he seemed to be quite happy picking up an awful lot of money, enough to buy various council houses, if that's what he wanted to do, without ever getting a game. What happened to him? Well, it's more or less what he got up to on his holidays. Amazingly, bizarrely, a Brazilian club, Internacional, a big club in the south of Brazil, in Porto Alegre, they gave him, on big money, a 4-year contract. Now, for someone whose problem seems to have been that he got into a comfort zone, what on earth were they thinking of giving him another comfort zone? And it's had more or less predictable results. The team, who are a big team, are in relegation danger at the moment. But he's been there for more than a year now, and he hardly ever plays. He's a kind of luxury substitute.
Didn't he go to Italy or something for a while?
He was, that's right. He was loaned to an Italian club for a while, and then United just kind of in the end they just ripped up the contract. They didn't want to. They just they wanted to get rid of him. They wanted someone else to pay his wages, and that's what Internacional have agreed to do for 4 years. They've had more than 1 year out of him. He's hardly got on the field. He doesn't get on very much. And towards the end of last week, he got into a training ground ruck with the right back. And he threw a punch. He's broken a tooth, I think, of the right back. He's caused more damage to his own right back than he's ever caused to opposing defences while he's been here. So they've just fined him 15% of his wages. Yeah. So I just thought people might like an update on what Anderson has been getting up to on his holidays.
Doesn't sound like it's going well.
It doesn't. No, it sounds like he's going down that path of the well-trodden, sort of slightly bigger than for his boots footballer who'll end up in some kind of ruckus in a Brazilian nightclub.
He's still young enough to come again if that's what he really wants to do. Yeah. But you do wonder.
Now, Tottenham at the weekend, Porky and I predicted would do terribly well against West Brom, but unfortunately our predictions didn't turn out to be correct. So,
well, they didn't do terribly badly, they just did averagely.
Well, they should have beaten West Brom. I mean, they just beat Manchester City, for heaven's sake.
Well, you say that, but then, of course, Liverpool should have beaten Burnley at Burnley, and Everton should have beaten Crystal Palace at home. That's the joy and the blessing of the Premier League. It's very unpredictable.
But some Brazilian coach has been talking about Spurs. That's the reason I'm asking Tim to see what he actually had to say about them.
Yeah, and this is Vanderlei Luxemburgo, who was the coach of Brazil about 15 years ago and was the coach of Real Madrid just over 10 years ago, not for very long. It's hurting the Brazilians at the moment, the fact that there are no Brazilian coaches in top-class European football, and there are lots of Argentines. Lots of them all around the place. So they really want to play this down. So Luxemburgo was saying, he was interviewed on Brazilian TV, he's trying to get a job. He's just been sacked from a club in the Chinese second division.
Oh dear, my God! Yeah, exactly. You put that on your CV, and that's it. Indeed, you're finished forever.
Indeed. So he's trying to get a job, and he's bitter and twisted about the fact that these Argentines are doing well in Europe. So he denied it. He said, "No, there aren't really any Argentines doing well in Europe." And examples were put to him. And someone said, "What about Pochettino?" This was just after Tottenham had beaten Man City, and he said, Tottenham aren't a big club." Forgive them, O Lord, they know what they say. Out of the mouths of babes and little children, as CJ once said in Reggie Perry. I don't know where he got that one from.
Yeah, no, neither do I.
I wonder if he's seen the plans for the new Tottenham ground.
Well, yeah, then he might change his mind.
Yeah, exactly.
What about Bayer Leverkusen? They're taking them on tonight. And, Spurs, I suppose, in the best case scenario, would want to top the group, wouldn't they?
Well, want to come first or second.
They'll certainly do that, won't they? I mean, I don't think there's any doubt they won't come second.
Well, I think you lose your first game at home, and that means that you've. And these two games, because the next two are against Leverkusen, both in Germany and then at Wembley.
Yes,
these will be the defining games, I think, and it's two sides who like to press, so they're going to press the life out of each other. It's the first chance I think I'll get to watch Tottenham in the Champions League. I mean, 2 games so far. One, I had a prior engagement I couldn't see, and the other one wasn't on. So I'm already getting keyed up for the big one. Yeah. And I've just seen it's likely, because my mum, my dear old mum, who's fit as a proverbial, she turns 80 next year. And that's March. So I'll have to come back for that.
Yeah.
And there's just a possibility, if assuming Tottenham get through to the second leg, that it might be, if the second round, that I might get a game. I might get a game in the Champions League at Wembley, and that would be terrific. So hopefully the gods of football will align themselves with my mum's star sign and work that out.
Well, as long
These
as
things often happen.
As long as Tottenham get used to playing at Wembley, of course, because, I mean, that first game against Monaco didn't look like they were very comfortable there, did it?
Well, probably not used to playing in front of all those people, when you've got a stadium which is 35,000. But they're going to have to get used to it because the big ground is coming. The big money's going to come in.
Well, yeah, you say that, and we're going to have NFL football there and all that kind of stuff. But I wonder if it's a plan too far. Do you think Tottenham, after what we've seen in the resumption of the Premier League, Tim, and Mr. Graham has alluded to Tottenham's poor performance at West Brom, do you still think they're a major contender for Premier League glory this year? Because I think it's wide open.
Yeah, I'm probably inclined to agree with you.
It is wide open. Because City haven't settled into that,
We're going to let him answer the question.
Relentless march towards what everybody thought would be their inevitable title.
Well, there's only one unbeaten team in the Premier League at the moment. Any guesses for what that unbeaten team might be?
Well, that was Tottenham, obviously. Yeah.
Well done. Yeah. Well done. And it seems to me that Pochettino has strengthened the squad in one or two vital places. Because you saw, and I was back for it. I was back for that game where we lost the title, where we had to win away at Chelsea.
Yes.
And I was in the stands for that. Chelsea very kindly gave me a couple of tickets for that game. I've done some stuff for their TV. So I was in amongst the Chelsea fans and celebrating very quietly alongside me, a long-term Brazilian girlfriend, when we opened up 2-0.
Yeah.
And then obviously Chelsea came roaring back second half, and the equaliser, the goal that gave the title to Leicester, was a wonderful goal from Eden Hazard.
Yeah.
So obviously the Chelsea fans all around me are kind of jumping up and down, and the most emotionally unbalanced of all of them, he turned to me and he saw I wasn't celebrating. He said, "Are you a Tottenham fan?"
It was a very bad-tempered affair, wasn't it?
It was
I
certainly
played
was.
the Brazilian card. I am from Brazil. I am from Brazil.
Really?
Yeah. I like William.
Did you do that? Did you do that convincingly?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I'm babbling away to my girlfriend in Portuguese, so I'm halfway there with that one anyway.
Yeah,
sure.
And no, he took it. He bought me a hook, line, and sinker.
Wow.
So I got away with it on that occasion.
That's very funny. Now, I mean, Porky was telling me over the weekend that basically Liverpool against Manchester United was the biggest club fixture in the calendar this year. But I'm thinking it might be Barcelona, Manchester City tomorrow night in the old Champions League, because there's going to be a great deal of interest from South America to begin with, right?
Yeah, well, if you're Argentina's coach, Edgardo Bauza, you're very, very happy that Lionel Messi has come back and he scored a goal the weekend against La Coruña. But you're kind of hoping that he doesn't play anymore for the next couple of weeks. We've got coming up, if it's even bigger than Barcelona against Man City, it's Argentina against Brazil or Brazil against Argentina. With Argentina in real problems in terms of World Cup qualification. They're down in 5th at the moment. The top 4 qualify automatically. And they've played 10 games. Only 3 of them with Messi. He keeps getting injured. Yeah. The 3 with Messi, they've won them all. The 7 without him, they've only won 1.
Right.
So they want him back and they want him fit.
They won't want Aguero to get injured either, I imagine.
No, although he might get dropped. I think he really hasn't been doing it for them. And if I was the Argentina coach, I think he'll probably go cautious away to Brazil. He'll look to play on the break, and so Aguero might have to cope with a place on the bench, I would have thought. So any Barcelona game between now and early November, I think Edgardo Bauza is going to be watching it the way that kids used to watch Doctor Who, behind the settee with the.
That's right. I mean, what do you make of Barcelona's season so far? Because, I mean, they're only 2 points off the top of the La Liga, but they're 4th, which is a bit of an unusual spot for them to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's only 2 points, as you say.
And talking about unpredictability, and look at what we've just had from Spain, which you usually think of as the most predictable. Barcelona just went down 4-3 to Celta Vigo. What happens to Celta Vigo in their next game? They lose 5-0 away to Villarreal.
Yeah.
So, even where you think it's most predictable, it is unpredictable. I've just got a little worry with Barcelona, which also applies to Argentina. Now, if you're going to play that way, you've got to defend. Because you are assuming the risk. You're running the risk of the opponent coming at you on the counter-attack. You're playing up so high. Now, I'm a huge fan of Javier Mascherano. I saw him all the way up. I saw him before he'd made his club debut for River Plate, and I wrote about him in World Soccer Magazine as saying, this fella really has something. I'm a huge fan of Mascherano. But he's now 32, and he has to take a lot of responsibility. I mean, Argentina's defensive system is basically held together by duct tape and Javier Mascherano. If he makes a mistake, the whole house of cards falls down. So there's a lot of responsibility on him for club and country. You see, he's just signed a new deal. He says it'll be his last one with Barcelona. Keeps him there till 2019. But at the age of 32, I'm just a little bit worried that he might be losing maybe half a yard. So that, for me, is going to be one of the things that I'm most looking out for. When they lost 4-3 to Celta Vigo, he didn't play. I think that they were resting him for that one. So that's one thing that I'll be looking out for. How will he get on against Sergio Aguero? It really does promise to be a terrific occasion.
I think there's going to be a lot of goals in it. And just finally and quickly, Tim, if you can, Maracanã Stadium, what's going on with that?
Well, we haven't had it almost all year because of the Olympics. Hopefully, we're going to get it on Sunday. Flamengo against Corinthians. It's the two biggest teams in Brazil. Will be a great. The supporters are just desperate to get in there and watch their team, which they haven't been able to do. But we won't find out for a few hours yet. It hasn't been confirmed yet. But it takes me back because my very first game here in Brazil when I moved over here in 1994 was Flamengo Corinthians. It was 1-0 to Corinthians at half-time, 5-2 to Flamengo at the final whistle. It's no wonder I got hooked.
No wonder indeed. Tim, as ever, a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
indeed.
Tim.
Enjoy the rest of the week and enjoy the Barcelona-Manchester City game, which we'll be talking about, I'm sure, for the rest of the week. This is TalkSport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out in a little while, later on this morning, of course. Hopefully we'll be talking to Sandra Lee one day this week as well, Mr. Parry. There's a couple of big stories you need to get down from Australia.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick a bit of listography? Shall I go through some of the
I think that's a great idea.
Here's one. There's a whole load on Facebook. There's a whole load on Twitter as well. So James, who I think is rather making fun of my predicament with the dry cleaners, says, how about your three favourite shirts?
Yes,
well, three of my favourite shirts are now missing.
No, three of 7 favourite shirts.
Yeah, 3 favourite dry cleaners, says the geezer. We're not going to do that one either. 3 favourite put-downs. 3 favourite sporting events, 3 favourite meals. Stephen says 3 childhood heroes of yours that you looked up to. 3 favourite women that you'd like to be with. I think is the best way I can put that.
Yeah.
Here's one. Where are we? 3 celebrities you'd love to give a Glasgow kiss to. Says Rick. I don't think we'll do that one. 3 favourite TV adverts of all time.
Yeah. There's one here from Luxury Lizzie. 3 parties or events you were dreading going to, but turned out to have a fantastic time.
I'm not sure I could list 3 of those.
I'm not sure I could remember 3.
What 3 things would you have put to have for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you were to be put in the gallows? 3 favourite sporting venues. I think we've kind of done that.
Yeah.
The 3 greatest times you've successfully gerrymandered something and got away with it. 3 favourite Sir Michael Caine films. I quite like that one, actually.
I don't like any of his films.
Don't you?
No.
You don't like Michael Caine?
No, I
what
don't.
About The Italian Job?
No, I think he's...
You didn't like The Italian Job?
Do you know what? I'm sure that I'm wrong because he's had tremendous success in life and he's highly revered. He's a Knight of the Realm, isn't it? He's Sir Michael Caine.
I think he is Sir Michael Caine, yeah.
And I've always found him to be the most wooden actor I've ever watched.
Really?
Really stiff.
What about Alfie?
Yeah, really stiff and unable to sort of deliver his lines with any panache and all that kind of stuff.
I guess we're not going to do that one then. 3 things to take to a desert island.
3 things to take to a desert island. I think that's a bit cliched, isn't it?
3 favourite love songs to keep the mood peaceful.
3 favourite love songs. I don't regard songs as love songs,
don't
really. You know what I mean?
What about Silly Love Song by Paul McCartney?
Well, I didn't. That was a great song.
No, it's a terrible song.
I mean, I suppose the one would be She Would Always Come to Me Tonight. You know, Charles Aznavour.
Charles who?
Charles Aznavour.
Aznavour.
Aznavour, that's right, yeah. So that was
It's a
love
great
song.
version by Elvis Costello, actually.
Is there?
Which they played at the end of Notting Hill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I can play for you if you like.
Okay.
Kurt says, this is on Facebook, 3 favourite memories with each other. We can't remember anything.
No.
That wouldn't work.
Been too long.
Three times you have experienced the paranormal or strange happenings.
Paranormal
That might be all right, as long as you
happenings?
don't tell the story about the bothy.
Well, that's right, yeah. Well,
That's the only one you can tell.
That's the only one I can tell, yeah.
3 favourite heists, apart from the dry cleaners heist of 2016.
Yep.
3 favourite bladderation sessions. 3 favourite wines. 3 TV programmes that you would have done a good job hosting.
Yes.
Don't
I'm
know
not
about that.
sure about that.
3 important things of value that you've had stolen. That might be good.
Okay.
Should we do that one?
Stolen or lost?
Well, stolen or lost, I guess we
Stolen
could
or
have either.
lost. And who's that from?
That's from Darryl on Facebook.
Okay. Stolen or lost,
3
yep.
things important or valuable that you've had stolen or that
okay.
you've lost.
I like that.
All right, that's
Thank you.
good. Well, that's what we're going to do then.
Yes.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
Good.
do that coming up in just over half an hour.
Because sometimes you don't know if they have been stolen or you have lost them.
Well, there are things.
That's why I said
I'll tell you
stolen
something
or lost.
weird, right?
Yeah.
My cleaner came at the weekend.
Yes.
And there's always something that's always not quite right. Last time she came,
Yes.
I've noticed one of the pictures was slightly at a different angle.
Yes.
Right. Because I've got a load of pictures of my kids and stuff up on the bookshelf, and so I replaced it in the right angle.
Yes.
Right. And then I went out, and when I came back in, it had fallen down. So obviously she'd pushed it slightly further back in, in order to make it not fall down.
Right.
But it somehow looked wrong.
Yeah, I see.
You know, and because it's now it then fell down and smashed. So the glass was smashed. This time, and it was it's always little things. I've got 3 ashtrays. One of them's missing.
Right.
I don't know where it is.
She might have washed it and put it away.
No, I've looked. I've looked everywhere.
Yeah, well, it happens to me all the time.
I've looked everywhere.
Seriously, my clean lady is so efficient, you know.
Yeah, but you know her very well.
Oh, yeah, I know.
This person I've never met.
I mean, she's more than that. She's my housekeeper, see. She does everything.
Yeah.
And something can go missing for about 2 weeks, but then it turns up.
Yeah, but you could ring her and say, did you see such and such?
I have done that, and she said, no, she hasn't. But then it still turns up because it's gone in the wrong drawer or the wrong cupboard or something like that. You know, it's remarkable the way these things happen. The worst experience I've ever had, which I'm sure I've told you about, was the cleaning lady I had when I lived in a place called Banstead, and I had what you'd call a townhouse, like a 3-storey house.
Oh, yeah.
And
is this the place you had the front paved over, the front garden?
I had the back paved over as well.
The back?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Well, you had no back garden?
Well, I did, but I had it paved over, and then I had like
a patio?
Yeah, a patio with big wooden tubs with trees in them and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was good,
What sort of trees?
Well, I don't know, ash trees or something.
Right. Not those little miniature bonsai trees.
No, proper trees.
Well, you can have big trees in a bucket. I mean, you're obsessed with buckets, you are, aren't you?
No, the bucket was the size of a bin,
right?
And the tree in it was like took it to a height of about 8 feet or something like that.
So it's quite a small tree then.
Yeah, quite a small tree. Yeah, but nevertheless a tree. But anyway, point is,
what is the point?
She was cleaner for a lady 2 doors away.
Yeah.
So and it was a new estate, but they'd moved from somewhere locally. They're downsized, okay, to put about a couple $100,000 in their bank for their retirement, you know. Yeah. And they brought the cleaner with them. So I thought, well, this must be a very, very reliable woman, you know. And I'm sure I've told this story before. I then started experiencing some very strange things in the house. Like I'd get home and find that the curtain rail had been torn down and ripped.
Really?
Yeah.
What, by the cleaner?
Well, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I found that one of the basins had been cracked. I mean,
really?
You know, in one of the 3 bedrooms,
What was she doing?
3 bathrooms. Well, this is the point. Anyway, and all sorts of weird things happened. I went to the...
Did you start to think the place was haunted?
Well, I went to the dishwasher one time, and I thought, I wonder why she hasn't emptied the dishwasher, you know, after the day's cleaning.
Right.
Opened it, took a plate out, and in fact, the dishes hadn't been cleaned.
Right.
And the thing is, the dishes were left in the sink. She's supposed to sort of put them into the dishwasher.
Right. So she put them in the dishwasher but not switched it on?
No, she'd done something really weird because half of the dirty plates were back in the cupboards above the dishwasher.
Well, she put the dirty plates in the cupboard?
Yeah.
Well, is she sure this woman wasn't some kind of maniac?
Well...
who was stalking you?
Well, no, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I thought I'd tell you the story before. And then, so I'm sitting there one night watching the telly, and there's a knock, knock, knock on the front door, which had glass panels in it. So as you go to it, you can see there's a chap standing on the side. And I said, oh, hello. He said, hello, Mr. Parry. He said, yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm afraid I've got some bad news about Doreen, whatever her name was, you know. I said, what's that? He said, well, she's my mother. Yeah, I said, and she's your cleaner?
Yeah.
Yes, I said, yeah. He said, I'm sorry, but she's passed away. I said, that's terribly tragic.
Oh,
he said, well, we all knew it was coming. I said, why? He said, well, she was a chronic alcoholic. And he said,
only you could find a chronic alcoholic to clean your house.
Yeah, and he said, the reason I've come round is because I think do you have any drinks in the house?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah. So I've got a drinks cupboard. He said, I bet you it's full of water and cold tea. I said, what? So he came in, and I went to the drinks cupboard, which was in a big sort of wall unit, and sure enough, she had drunk everything. Vodka, gin, whiskey, brandy, and she'd replaced the clear spirits, vodka and gin, with water, and she'd replaced the whiskey and the brandy with cold tea, and she'd replaced things like sherry and all that with, and you should get her hand on gravy and all sorts of things. Yeah.
That's astonishing.
Yeah.
You've never told me that story.
Yeah.
Well, interesting.
Yeah, absolutely true, because she'd done it to the other house that she worked in, and they suddenly found out and all that, and she'd just become a chronic alcoholic, drinking all her customers' booze.
Terrible. Anyway, that's quite a story. We've got lots more coming up in the next hour, of course, including listography. We're going to do 3 things of value that we've either lost or were stolen. This is TalkSport.
She may be the face I can't forget, a trace of pleasure or regret, maybe my treasure or the prize I have.
Don't you think that's a great version?
Who is that?
It's Elvis Costello.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought that was old Aznavour himself.
Aznavour?
Yeah, he's about 90 now, by the way.
Yeah, probably.
He's still alive.
Well, you may well be alive.
Yeah.
I mean, although you say that, I mean, normally you kill people off who are still alive, and you say people are still alive who are actually dead.
Yeah, well, I know he's still alive because I read it in one of the birthday columns quite recently.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Donny says this: I can't believe Andy Murray's not getting a mention. Best British sportsman ever. Why would we be mentioning Andy Murray?
For what reason?
Well, I mean, he's closing in on becoming the world number 1 again.
Yeah, but he's not yet. He's won another tournament, hasn't he, in Shanghai?
Down there, yeah, the
That's
Shanghai
right, yeah.
Masters.
Yeah, good for him, that's great.
But he beat Spaniard Roberto Bautista Agut. I'm not sure how good he is. I'm
Good
sure
for
there
him.
might be tennis fans who'll say that's a fantastic
But he's still got a couple of thousand points to make up on Djokovic, hasn't he?
1,500, I think.
1,500, is it? Yeah, okay.
Which I guess he might be able to do.
Yeah, well, definitely.
But no, I mean, you know, we talk about Andy Murray whenever there's something to talk about with Andy Murray.
Yes.
But there doesn't seem to be particularly at the moment.
No,
as far as I can
absolutely.
tell. Now, here's one from Steve. He says, Porky is a chronic presenter-holic. We know this because he keeps turning up on any show he can get his mouth on.
Well, funny you should say that, but next Sunday, when I was invited onto a show, I actually can't do it because I have a family commitment to go to. And
that's very unusual.
Have we told the audience that we're away next week yet?
I don't think we have, no.
No, well, I think we better tell them that.
Well, we got about 45 seconds to tell them.
Yeah, well, you're going...
Well, I'm going to be away on holiday.
With your children?
With my
kids. It's half term, is it?
Term, yeah.
Well, that's a good idea. I think you should.
Yeah, we're going off to foreign parts.
That's right. Well, I've decided to...
You're not going to show up, are you?
What?
You're not going to show up?
No, I'm not going to show up, mate. No,
sure?
No, definitely not. Because I have decided that I'm going to take the same days off as you and go around and sort out the Two Mikes Empire.
Yes, because the Empire is in need of being sorted out in various different ways, right?
Just to tidy up. To tidy up.
Yes, it's not a bad thought, that. This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out as well. Lots more for us to do. Keep your tweets coming in as well. At the Two Mikes, of course, on Twitter. And go and have a look at our Facebook page as well, where we posted a new picture of ourselves. It's rather a sort of nifty black and white number, you'd have to say.
What's that?
The new picture. What do you mean, what's that?
Yes. No. I totally agree.
Yes. No.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's a great picture, and it seems to define us, if you know what I mean.
I think so, yeah. Abdul says this: a chronic alcoholic in Porky's house is like a bank robber working security at a bank.
That's a bit. That's a bit odd.
Well, I think he's referring to the amount of booze that might be there, which would be easy to sort of half inch.
Yeah, but the point is, I think I've illustrated how little I would have drunk at home in those days because I never went near the drinks cabinet.
I was going to say, amazing that if she worked for you for quite a long period of time,
that's
like
right.
a few months or a year. That you wouldn't have noticed that the booze was going down.
The thing is, you only go at the what you call quotes the drinks cabinet, you know, where the gin and the vodka and the Bacardi is, when you're having an event or people coming around or Christmas. But I mean, most of the time you're just bringing down bottles of wine, aren't you?
Well, exactly,
and drinking that. But anyway,
although funny enough, I bought a small case of beer.
Oh yes.
A few weeks ago. when it was really hot, because I thought rather, it might just be nice to have an occasional beer. I've only had one of them.
Right, okay. I don't drink anything like that.
I've had one bottle of beer, and this thing is now like taking up a lot of space.
I've got a can of cider in my fridge. It's been there months.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why I bought it.
Give it to the down and outs.
Yeah, maybe I will if it gets too old. I might. Now, on the cleaning lady thing, right?
Yes.
A few years ago, we had an associate. It wasn't a colleague, an associate, worked for a betting company, right? And at the time, Talksport had a relationship with this betting company, a business relationship, And this guy, he had a less than finely disciplined life, to put it sort of gently. You see what I mean?
Right.
He liked to drink and liked getting out and about a bit and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes didn't get home at night and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember one time when we were in South Africa, I woke up one morning in the lodge which Talksport taken over for all the stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
I went downstairs. There was a lovely lounge there because of course it's winter in South Africa during the World Cup. You know. And a lady used to come and
It's not cold, though, is it? I mean, it's not a cold place.
It's cold first thing in the morning.
Did I tell you I was on South African television, by the way?
Oh,
I think I told you on Friday, yeah.
When was that?
It was on Friday.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, there's a guy there that I know who occasionally asked me to go on.
Okay.
But the bizarre thing this time was that rather than just putting me on the phone, he said, I want to do it on Skype.
Oh.
Right, so that I can actually, have you on the screen.
Yeah, I see.
But the trouble was, there were two guys standing in front of this massive screen.
Yeah.
And they projected my face literally the size of the screen.
Yes.
Which looked horrendous.
It would have looked horrendous.
And I said to him, are you sure this is not going to frighten people?
It would have looked horrendous.
But actually, apparently they had more views of that than anything else.
Oh, yeah, of course they did. Yeah, people across South Africa saying, oh, Mike Graham's on Skype. Let's tune in. Yeah.
Do you know what it was about? It was about the World Cup.
Yeah.
Well, you know how FIFA want to expand it to 48
Oh, I see.
teams.
You mean, yes, okay, yeah. Did you talk to them about all the stadiums in South Africa? And
No,
all
I didn't.
That?
No, because they've already had the World Cup in South Africa. The 2026 World Cup is more likely to be in America, actually.
Well, and we're not going to get it now for another 32 years.
No.
Yeah. But anyway, so he turns up in South Africa. I went downstairs one morning, and the lady's lighting the fire, and there's a guy, like, literally flat out on the floor, and it's this chap, But he had one redeeming feature, and that is that at some time, associating with him, we've been having a drink sometime, and he said, I've got this fantastic new cleaning lady. And I said, really? Oh, he said, utterly fantastic. He said, it's a dream come true. It's a perfect relationship. Never had anything like it in my life. So I said, no need to go overboard. I said, I've had half a dozen cleaning ladies, and...
Had you had the alcoholic one by this time?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I would have done, because that was back in the days when I was at the Express and all that, And I said, if you get a good one, hang on. He said, no, it's much more than that. I said, what do you mean? He said, she only does 2 hours a week for me. And I said, yeah. I said, but she does a lot of them in the block that I live in. He rented a flat in, like, Docklands or something like that, And so I'm not often there, but it happened to be I was there the other morning. She came in. He said, and I didn't realise how good-looking she was. She's Brazilian, and she's very, very good-looking. And she said, well, say this guy's name was, for instance, Tom, right?
Tom.
But it wasn't Tom.
Okay.
I mean,
Are you protecting his identity?
I'm protecting his identity.
It's very good of you.
Protecting the company he works for,
Okay.
So she comes in and she says, hello, Tom. Now, how do Brazilian people speak? They say,
it's basically a Portuguese country.
Portuguese, yeah. Oh, hello, Tom. It was sort of.
That sounds more like Newcastle.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. She said, "You are a very good-looking man."
Oh, yeah.
And Tom, got sort of flattered and said, "Oh, really? You think so?" She said, "Oh, yes." And she says, "Thank you for paying me £30 for cleaning your apartment. It's very good." And he said, that's okay. And she said, for another £30, you can have sex with me every week.
Brilliant.
And he said, what?
He said, okay, presumably,
He said, yeah, okay, I'm in for that. So every week, on a Tuesday, he was always now late for work.
There'd have been a horizontal refreshment,
followed
by some cleaning.
Exactly.
How extraordinary!
But the thing is, we then speculated on the fact that she cleaned about 10 flats in this complex, right? So I mean, if she was if she had the same arrangement with every flat dweller, then
there was a lot of cleaning going on.
She was quite clearly a very busy woman, and probably soon have enough to buy her own flat. You know what I mean?
Maybe she was doing it on a day-by-day basis.
That could well be, yeah, could have been, yeah.
Well, I suppose you might admire her for sort of entrepreneurial abilities.
Exactly. Totally agree.
How extraordinary.
But I mean, that is like the perfect relationship, I suppose, because there's absolutely no commitment or ties or anything like that.
No.
It's purely a duster and feather type job, isn't it?
Duster and feather type job, as you put it,
yeah.
I don't know what David's going on about here. He says, half the stories MG has told tonight are repeats. Has MG run out of material or lost his marbles?
I don't remember hearing a repeat
I don't
story.
think I've told any repeat stories.
I don't think I've heard
I've asked him to say which ones he's talking about specifically.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, he now says half. So he hasn't actually specified at all. I think perhaps David's lost his marbles.
I think you lost your marbles, pal, because I would be the first to be able to upbraid Mr. MG if he was peddling, second-hand stories. But I haven't heard any.
Here's one from Rob, who says, the tinge of disappointment in Porky's voice when MG said he'd been on South African TV was unmistakable.
Oh, no, it wasn't. I know a lot about South African broadcasting. I've done a lot. I did a lot during the World Cup for them, South African broadcasting, with Gary Bailey.
Gary Bailey,
who was the former Manchester United goalkeeper, who's now like a sort of broadcasting icon.
Oh, is he? Down there?
In South African, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Very good.
By the way, this group, Little Mix?
Little Mix, yes.
Yeah, they seem to have become very big recently.
Well, they are very big, yeah. They're very popular. Making an awful lot of money.
I saw an advert in the Sunday Times culture page or something like that, So you're looking at sort of bookings for the Royal Albert Hall and... Tchaikovsky concerts and all this kind of stuff. Nutcracker Suite and all that. Then you're looking at, really serious people like Billy Joel and all this kind of stuff. And then there's this sort of half page says Little Mix 2017. And I'm not joking, there's about like 40 venues and they're all sold out.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. But I mean, they're a very popular young beat combo, as the people would say.
Yeah, but they don't actually make good music. They just look rather attractive and prance around on stage, don't they?
Well, I mean...
Or am I being unkind?
I think you're being a little bit unkind and sounding rather middle-aged. I'm sure that people who like them think their music's great. Did you see that story about Phil Collins today, by the way? I tweeted it out.
Was this about Paul McCartney?
No, it was about Phil Collins.
Bashing his face in?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened? Did he fall over in the bathroom?
Well, he says he fell over in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's one of those stories where you go, well, you might have done.
Yeah.
But, really?
But it's a really bruised eye.
He's got a black eye.
But have you seen the other story about Phil Collins knocking around? Because
the one about his feud with McCartney.
Well, it's not a feud. Apparently, when they did the Buckingham Palace things, that would have been the celebration for the Queen. No, what would it have been? Was it a celebration of the Queen's 60th?
Yeah, well, not the 60th, no, but it would have been the 75th, wouldn't it?
When Brian May got up on the roof.
Wasn't it like the Diamond Jubilee and all that?
Diamond Jubilee. Or was it? What was the James Bond celebration? What was that?
That was the Olympics. You mean James Bond when she pretended like she flew in? That was 2012.
Oh, it's opening to the Olympics.
Yeah.
It might have been that or whichever. But anyway, whatever it was, Phil Collins turns up and he's part of the combo and Paul McCartney is. And apparently, according to reports... I hope I'm not misleading anybody here. Phil Collins brought a book with him.
Yeah.
McCartney...
it was Hunter Davis's book.
Was it? Biography, that's right, yeah. And said, about the Beatles rather than Paul McCartney.
No, it was about the Beatles.
About the Beatles, yeah. So apparently he said, Paul, do us a favour, can you just put your name on that for me, please? And he was going to give it to a friend, for a present or something like that.
Yeah.
Which actually would have been quite sensational, wouldn't it?
It would.
Somebody handed you a book these days saying, this is the authoritative...
It's been signed by Paul McCartney.
Yeah, exactly, the authoritative history of the Beatles, signed by Paul McCartney. And apparently, Paul McCartney, according to these reports... called him, a pathetic little Beatles fan, and
he mocked him. Basically. And he was with Heather Mills at the time.
Exactly.
Maybe some of her personality was rubbing off on him.
Maybe it was, or something like that. Yeah, but I mean, look, there's two sides to every story like that. You wonder how many times Paul McCartney's been asked to endorse things over the years,
Exactly. And then one final snippet from Phil Collins, when he was talking about how much he used to drink. He said he was drinking vodka once from the bottle for breakfast when he was in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And he had to be airlifted from Turks and Caicos to New York because he drunk so much that his organs were starting to fail.
Oh, that's called multiple organ failure.
Yeah.
What happens is you've congested your liver.
He doesn't even play the organ.
Sorry?
He doesn't even play the organ.
you've congested your liver so much it stopped functioning, and then what happens in the body is when one organ collapses, all the other organs then try and take on the job of that organ.
Right.
So if your brain's gone, your heart tries to compcompensate, and your organ.
Well, I mean, it must
liver.
be pretty serious to be airlifted back to New York.
Oh, absolutely. So then, when the other organs are trying to cope with the massive failure of the liver, and they can't, that's when you start closing down and you get multiple organ failure.
I know, shocking.
I know these things.
Absolutely
Nearly
shocking.
happened to me with my heart.
Nearly, yeah. Another miracle recovery.
It was,
obviously.
yeah.
This is Talk Sport. We're running very late.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Talk Sport, we are the Two Mics. We're coming up with listography very shortly, which we're going to rename lostography tonight, just because it's all about things that we might have had stolen or lost.
Indeed.
What do you think of that idea?
I think that's on the button. On the button.
From behind the glass. How about this from Vicky? It says she just choked on her cup of tea. 30 quid. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether she thinks that's too little or too much.
30 quid, yeah.
30 quid for the horizontal refreshment.
Yes, that's right, yeah. But it probably lasted no more than 10 minutes, I wouldn't imagine. Would you? You know what I mean?
3 quid a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I've no idea.
I mean, there was not much love involved in it, you know what I mean? It was purely a physical experience.
Well, that doesn't mean it has to be shorter just because there's no love involved, does it?
I don't know, you know.
Steve says, now I know why Porky's cleaning lady turned to drink. Hashtag horizontal refreshment.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't. Oh, she was much older than me, the lady who was the cleaning lady, as she was in those days. She just seemed to be, you know, a sort of old and reliable lady. Well, not old, middle-aged and all that, but unfortunately she was a paralytic imbiber.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And now, here's somebody called Jan, who doesn't have a picture, so I don't know who Jan is.
Yes.
But he says, yes, Mike, too many repeats. He says, the story about your ex-wife continuing to phone the hotel that you were staying at, that's the third time you've told it.
I've never heard it before.
Well, I don't know whether that's the third time I've told it or not, but I'll tell you what, if you come to one of our live shows, you'll hear a lot of stories being told for more than the third time.
Yeah, exactly.
People seem to like me telling them.
Yeah, but in the nicest possible way.
But it's obviously very good if you've been listening to me for so long that you know everything about me.
Well, exactly.
And every single story.
Exactly.
And the reason we talk about these things is because they are relevant to whatever it is that we're going on about. By the way, the New York Jets are now 14-3 down to the Arizona Cardinals.
My
the third quarter. Do you know what I watched last night, actually? Because I was
will the world ever be the same?
Quite keen on a bit of football. I watched Any Given Sunday. That great. Have you not, what do you mean, what?
Any Given Sunday. What is that about?
It's a film. It's about an American football team. It's an Oliver Stone film. You've heard of him, right?
What was that one that Robert Redford was in?
Which one?
That was a baseball film.
Yeah, the baseball film.
Yeah. What was it called?
I can't remember.
No, neither can I, because it's rubbish. You know, you've got to do very, very well to try...
It was The Natural. It was The Natural, wasn't it?
Not sure. You've got to do very, very well to make a sports film work and be successful.
Any Given Sunday is brilliant.
Be successful because...
Do you know why it's brilliant?
Why?
Because James Woods is in it. Do you know who else is in it?
No.
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino's very good.
Yeah.
I would watch a film with Al
and
Pacino.
He plays the coach, and he makes that amazing speech, which I've played out on this station many times before.
Yes.
Where he talks about the game being a game of inches.
Right, okay.
And like life, football is a game of inches.
Yes.
It's a brilliant speech. It's one of those sort of things, if you ever heard it, you would be inspired. It's the kind of thing that you would play, I would say, to any football team, whether it's American football or English football.
To sort of inspire them.
To inspire them.
Yeah, I see.
By the way, somebody else sent me another Neil Warnock-inspired speech. Because there's a load of it going around on the internet now.
There is, yeah.
And this was when he was a manager of Huddersfield.
Okay.
And he's in the dressing room at half-time.
Yes.
Absolutely tearing, strips off the players.
That's right, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of rather abusive language, yeah?
Lots of abusive language.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And he doesn't name any of the players, he just goes, you! You're getting in the bath now. You just get in the bath.
Yeah.
And you're going on.
Yeah.
You, what are you doing? You know, it's great. It's very. It's the sort of thing an England manager should be able to do.
Well, you know, he's been very effective over the years. That's why he's now the new manager of
Cardiff City.
Cardiff City. That's right. Yes.
Well, I mean, I put him in. I
put
him in as hero yesterday because he's got Cardiff City out of the relegation zone after one game.
Well, there you go.
And the team that he managed last year, Rotherham, are still down at the bottom of the division.
Still down
and
the bottom.
will probably be relegated this year.
Yeah.
Why? By the way.
And who's in charge of them now?
Rotherham. No.
Stubbsy.
Stubbsy.
Alan Stubbs.
Well, he came from Hibs down to there.
He came from Hibs to Rotherham, and it don't look like it's working out too well. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you who else it's not working out too well for is your old mate David Moyes. I mean, do you think he's going to last?
Well, I mean, he was handed a really bum pack of cards, wasn't he?
Well, you say that, but I mean, he took the job. It's not as if he took the job not knowing that Sunderland weren't very good.
Yeah, but he didn't know the strength or weakness of the squad because he took it so quickly.
Well, why didn't he?
Took it so quickly, and also didn't know what was behind it. But of course, there's all the speculation now that Sunderland's going to be sold to some Chinese consortium. I don't understand that. Why would they? Unless is it Ellis Short who's the owner of Sunderland?
Yeah.
Now, unless he's
an American, I think, right?
Yeah, he's American. Yeah, I've met him actually. I met him when I went up there, and I sat in the director's box with I think I told you with Miliband's brother David Miliband.
Right, yeah.
And
man of the people.
Man of the people. Now, unless he's factored into it that I'm going to cut my losses now and sell it to the Chinese for half price or something like that because it's going down to the Championship or not, I don't know. But I don't know why anybody would buy a club that's heading to the Championship.
Well, yeah, but we know...
Unless you get it very cheap.
But we know from talking to our guys in China before that there's this massive hunger.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, now that the pound is so weak, it's even more attractive, right, for them, because they can save themselves, probably 100 million quid or something like that.
Indeed.
But also, anything anywhere near the Premier League has got to be worth buying, because the money that they can make from it and the profile they can have, I mean, would be immense.
Yes, no, I accept that, but I've never understood the rush to buy into football clubs anyway, because football clubs do not make money. Football clubs only make money if you deprive the manager of funds to buy players, because if you want to be successful at the very highest level, then you've got to pay the premium price for the world's best players, which means there's no money left in the kitty after you've done that, because the spiral of income increasing all the time going into football automatically pushes up the players' wages at the very, very top, and you have to compete with that.
Sure.
There's no way you can hold back.
No, indeed. Lee says, Porky, it's the Field of Dreams, that baseball film you're thinking of. It's not, actually. Well, no, because that wasn't
that's the one I was thinking of, yeah.
Oh, was it? That was Kevin Costner.
Kevin
Robert
Costner,
Redford,
that's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Robert Redford was in The Natural, though.
Oh, was
which
he?
was about the baseball as well.
Oh, was it? It was probably that one then,
Vicky elaborates on her earlier tweet. She says, no, it's too cheap, MG. Practically the same price as Porky's KFC.
You what?
For 30 quid.
Yeah, well
you spent 25.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You could have had, 10 minutes with the Brazilian cleaner.
No. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, could have done, yeah.
How about this one from William? He said, sad to hear about anyone passing away. It's fortunate Porky hadn't offered someone a drink and poured out a glass of gravy. They would have thought you was mad.
Yeah, they would have done, actually.
It wouldn't have been good,
or pouring them water.
Oh, imagine.
Yeah,
imagine that.
Yeah. What do you want, a gin tonic? Yeah, there's the tonic. There's the ice. I'll just put a few, three, what they used to call it in the cowboy films, three fingers of gin.
3 fingers, yeah.
Yeah, and there you go, yeah. And then, I'm sorry, mate, this doesn't taste like gin. What's wrong with you? Is your palate gone? And then somebody else drinking the whiskey saying, what's this?
I know.
Oh, the whiskey must have gone off. And let me taste it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
absolutely unbelievable.
I'm very calculated as well.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well,
she must have been going in there every day and boiling a kettle, getting the tea bags out, making a pot of tea, waiting for it to cool down to nothing, and then literally, I didn't have a pot anyway, so I don't know how she did it.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, that's the people who are addicted to things become very sort of
adept
cunning, don't they?
And then she's pouring it back into the whiskey bottle. I mean, amazing. Yeah. But her son actually said, "I'm really sorry." And he offered to pay for all the bottles.
That was very decent of him.
Yeah, and I said no. I said honestly, I couldn't possibly do that. I'm very sorry that your mother had such terrible troubles at the end of her life. So it's not
exactly
a problem.
Right. Speaking of the secret drinking sscenario,
yes.
Going back to the fall, was there not a scene in the last one where the Irish guy with the beard, whose name I never remember, but who is the sort of police commissioner type guy, chief constable?
Yes.
Is there not a scene where he's in the toilet just kind of swigging from a bottle? Or did you not see that?
No, I didn't see that. I don't think.
I think there is because it's now been revealed that he's now got a bit of a problem. I presume it was like a miniature bottle of something rather than actual water.
Ah.
So you might have to keep an eye on that.
Keep an eye on that, definitely. Yeah. But don't you agree that the actress is just too glamorous to be a policewoman?
No, I don't, because, the whole point about drama is you suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, well, I can't.
I mean, I remember doing an interview with one of those security experts in America.
Yes.
And we were talking about Homeland, and this guy happens to be a very good-looking guy.
Right.
And I said to him, I said, your Twitter profile picture makes you look like somebody out of Homeland. Because people would say, oh, yeah, but they don't look that good, these CIA types, right?
Yes.
And he went, oh, you should see this woman. And he pointed me to another sort of security expert, former CIA operative, who was gorgeous.
Right.
So, I mean, it can happen.
But in the CIA, you can be underground, or you can be a spy, or you can be somebody you're not supposed to be, undercover. That's right, yeah. And but she was like an upfront online policewoman. What did you think of the Olympic?
Seen the time, by the way.
What did you think of the Olympic parade today?
I'll tell you about that later.
Yeah, I think we should talk about it.
Well, we should talk about it, but coming up next, it's lostography.
Okay.
As it's being...
Worst pop roasters I've ever heard.
Really?
There was that
hang
one.
on, they weren't as bad as Paper Lace.
Oh, no, they were worse because
No.
they had no melody, they had no structure, no stanzas.
I used to love the videos. I thought the videos were great.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what he made them for. He always said the video's most important. So he did old Prince Charming. Then he did Stand Deliver, that one. Then the other one he did was goody, 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 two shoes. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, it didn't sound quite like that. I thought they were all right. I mean, if you as bands go, they were not as bad as many, I have to say.
Rubbish.
That would be me.
But rubbish.
I have to say, I don't actually have any of their records.
Right, okay.
Anyway, so are you ready to give us three things that you had lost or stolen?
Yes.
Would you like to go first with your first one?
I'll go first.
Go on, then.
I lost my football programme collection about 10 years ago, and I'm heartbroken still because it was...
Was this the thing you lost in a house move?
Yes, I lost it in a house move.
What do you think happened to it?
Well, what had happened was I moved 3 times in a year.
Yeah.
And I didn't unpack a load of the stuff from the first move to the second. And then the second to the third, I left for about 6 months before I unpacked that.
Right.
And the thing was that I was actually I wasn't buying the houses to rent. I was buying them to live in. And I was trying to get away from bad neighbours and that kind of stuff. And in the middle house, I stored a lot of stuff in They had one of these situations where you reach up to a cord in the ceiling on the second floor, and you pull it down.
And you get into the loft.
And ladders come down the loft and all that.
Oh, yeah, I got one of them.
Okay, so I go in there, and I put a load of stuff in there, literally carried up the stairs.
Yeah.
And amongst it were my football programmes, which were in 2 boxes, bound together, and then covered in black plastic bags.
And how many would you say there were?
Programmes? Yeah. About 600.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And the idea of putting black plastic around them was to shield off dust, because I knew that it was going to be some time before I'd be able to retrieve them and put them into proper presentation boxes and that kind of stuff. Now, when I moved about 8 months later, and the reason I kept moving was because the price of houses was rocketing. I think this particular one, and it's years ago now, I bought for 120 and sold for 135 6 months later. I mean, that's how it was, it was going like that, and something like that. No, I bought it for about 112, actually, and sold for 135. But anyway, I had to move out quickly and all that. And I went up in the loft, and for some known reason, I don't think I switched the light on.
Right.
And I threw everything out very quickly to somebody who's waiting at the bottom of the stairs, catch that, catch that, catch that, catch that. And I thought everything had and then it was 6 months later when I unpacked in the third house I'd moved into, which was a much bigger house. It was on 3 floors, it had 4 bedrooms, and I'd used one of the bedrooms as a storeroom for the stuff that I hadn't unwrapped and all that. That I suddenly found there was no...
Do you think it might still be in that house, or did you go back and check?
I went back and checked, and I knocked on the door, and I put letters through the door, notes, and I said I'll pay £100 reward, and all this kind of stuff. I've never had a reply from them, and you can't keep going back and knocking on the door.
No, they
know
think
what I
you're
mean?
a bit weird.
Yeah, well, exactly. Of course they would.
So how much do you think that would be worth if you had it now? I know it's not necessarily about the money.
It wouldn't be worth anything materially to anybody. It's just a load of old programmes, but most of them were games I'd been to.
Yeah.
So they started going to Chester when I was 6 or 7. I had Chester programmes. And then all the early programmes from Everton.
Yeah.
And then I did, as a kid, when I used to read Charles Buchan's Football Monthly, they used to sell programmes in the magazine.
Oh, right, in the back, yeah.
Yeah, you could send, like a 5-shilling postal order and get a collection of programmes from clubs that you've never been to, like York City and Grimsby and Hibernian in Scotland and all that. And they were fascinating to a kid of 10 or 12, and you read them and all that. And I had this huge collection. Anyway, never got them back. Since then, I've been going to programme fairs, and I've built up another sizable collection.
Oh, okay.
But it's not the same, because they're not the programmes...
They're not the ones you had.
...that I got by paying sixpence to outside the ground.
Absolutely right. My first one is about a briefcase that I once had.
Oh, yeah.
When I was starting out very much early in my journalistic career, and I was working for a magazine in London, and I just started going out with this girl. And again, it was one of those things where no mobile phones.
Nope.
So you basically only had the phone. I had a phone. I didn't have a home phone number for her, because I'm not even sure if she had one. All I had was a work phone number for her. And she worked for some advertising agency, but I didn't really know the name of it. And we'd only been going out for a few weeks.
Sure.
So we had indulged in a bit of refreshment horizontally.
Yes.
and I had her details in my briefcase.
Right.
And I went for a drink with somebody one night up in Hampstead in a wine bar.
Yes.
Which was it's now Café Rouge, actually. It was Hampstead High Street. And, not a particularly massive session, but got to the end of the night, and I'd sat at the bar and put the briefcase sort of in front of me underneath my legs,
Yes.
not particularly safeguarding it with my feet or anything like that. But I went down to get it, it was gone.
Right.
And somebody had nicked it.
God.
Somebody had,
Terrible.
without me knowing, walked off with my briefcase. So I went immediately thinking, well, I'd better go and report this. I walked down where Hampstead Police Station used to be, just down the road.
Yes.
And I said, I've been a victim of a robbery. And the guy said to me, have you been injured, sir? I said, yeah. Actually, no, sorry. He said, well, then you haven't been a victim of a robbery. And I said, well, somebody's stolen my briefcase. He said, oh, well, in that case, you've been a victim of theft. And I'm like, what difference does it make? I haven't got my briefcase. Would you mind? Anyway, I never got it back, and as a result, I could never find this girl again. I could never get her number because I didn't know her second name.
Really?
I didn't know which agency.
And where was her contact number written?
It was in a book that I had in my briefcase.
Okay.
I think it was like a contacts book that I had
in
my briefcase. And I don't know which other numbers I lost, but most of them I could get back.
Yeah.
So she probably to this day, maybe not even all these years later, I was only about 21 or 22.
Yeah.
To this day, she probably thinks I'm a complete swine because I just never called her again.
Yeah, terrible. That's terrible.
It's awful.
It
so
is
not only did I lose the briefcase, I lost her.
Shocking. That is shocking.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. Terrible.
You got a second one?
I've got a second one,
We better be a bit quicker here because we've got another 4 to do.
That's right. Well, this will fascinate you because when I kind of left New York as a staff man after being there for about 3 years, everybody in Costello's, our favourite bar, had a collection. Raised $1,000.
What, for you?
Yeah.
Well, just to make sure you went.
Well, no, to salute the sterling job I'd done there.
Nobody collected anything for me when I left. I mean, they gave me some presents, but I never got any money.
No, this was, and Jane organised it all, because, of course, she was, organiser.
The New York Welcoming Committee.
Exactly, organiser-in-chief. And
she'd already moved on to somebody else by then, hadn't she?
No, not really. No. She came to see me, actually, in England a bit later, yeah. But anyway, so she said, what are we going to get you? And I thought, well, anyway, she said, leave it to me. So I was bought a beautiful watch with a square face.
Right.
It was a gold watch.
That didn't form part of the Porky watch collection, did it?
No, this is the point. This is why we're doing a stolen or lost, right? Because it was a beautiful watch. It reminded me of a great time in my life. And it had a black leather strap because I specified I didn't want a gold strap, you know what I mean? Because I thought it would look too gauche.
Yeah, unlike the one you've got on your Rolex now.
Well, yeah, but it's a Rolex, isn't it? But anyway, it was a most beautiful watch. And what was unique about it, what was the selling point of it was so terribly thin.
Right.
It was
what make was it?
It begins with W.
W.
Yeah, and I can't remember.
I can think of a couple of names.
Yeah. Well, exactly. But it was a very, very good watch. It cost $1,000, and it was so beautifully thin.
And very light, presumably.
Very light, and it felt like part of your wrist. And about 2 years after I got back, the glass got smashed, and I took it into a jeweller's to get it replaced, and they said, it'll take months because this glass has got to be ordered from America, where it was made, or Switzerland, or something like that. And I said, well, okay, I'll come back in a couple of months if you order the glass now and all that kind of stuff. And then a couple of months later, I got a call from them saying, we got your glass. I said, great. I went to find the watch. Nowhere. I have no idea where I put it.
Oh, really?
No idea where I put it,
Oh,
and I've never seen it since.
Okay.
Never seen it since.
Well, my second one is a New York story as well.
Right.
It's when I got my office in New York, and it was at 166 Fifth Avenue.
Right.
Which is still there.
Yes.
And people used to, from London...
166 Fifth?
166 Fifth. People from London used to think it was like on the expensive... It was in the sort of 23rd Street bit of Fifth Avenue. So very trendy, but not particularly, expensive. And unfortunately, for me... It was a relatively unsecure building at night, which is what I didn't know.
Right.
And a guy came and robbed my office 3 times in the space of a week.
Good God.
Right? And what he was doing was there was an all-night snooker bar, all-night snooker hall down the road, where you and I went, I think.
Yeah, we did,
Because I used to keep a queue there. And he was basically going into the snooker hall, as I found out later, and saying to people, do you want a fax machine? Do you want a PC? And he was just literally with a truck, with a trolley, going up into my place. The first time he came in a window, so I put some bars up on the window.
Yeah.
It cost me a great amount of money. Second time he came, he basically just went up above the. There was like a full ceiling.
Yes.
And even though I'd put like sort of padlocks on the door and everything, he just went through the ceiling and down the other side.
Yeah.
And he took fax machine, he took 2 computers,
Yeah.
He took a load of phones. I mean, he just basically cleaned the place out. Well, it was the same guy, yeah.
And did they catch him?
They never caught him, no. And the third time, after the third time he did it, which after that there wasn't really anything left, I basically hired an armed guard to sit there. And I said, if you catch this guy, if he comes back at fourth time... No, I said, don't shoot him. Hold him for me, and I'll shoot him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, I mean, he practically destroyed my business. Fortunately, I was able to replace it all, and I got some insurance stuff and stuff. But it was horrendous.
It sounds horrendous, yeah.
Now, finally, very quickly...
My third one, my first really decent car was a Vauxhall Viva.
Yeah.
And then I was transferred...
Well, you say that.
Yeah. I was transferred to London by the Birmingham Mail to bring it with me. First thing that happened was I parked it outside Wood Green Tube Station.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was looking for a house around there. And in the space of 5 minutes, somebody smashed the window and took my radio.
I thought you were going to say they took the car.
No, they didn't take the car. They took the radio.
Right.
And that radio had cost me hundreds of pounds. It was my pride and joy. The first record I ever played in it was Credence Clearwater Revival, Hey Tonight. Hey Tonight. And I was heartbroken because...
You never got the Credence back.
The Credence was in it when they nicked it, yeah.
You are like the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
How funny. Well, my final one actually is back in London, shortly after we moved back to London.
Yes.
And we rented my sister's apartment from her, which is in Belsize Park, which you will know well.
Yes.
For reasons I'd rather not go into. And one day... some kids who weren't particularly, obviously, looking for anything major.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of walk-up buildings in Belsize Park.
Yes.
Went in and did every single place in the building. The guy downstairs had a bottle of whiskey taken. That was it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my ex-wife had left a load of jewellery in an ashtray, one of those big pub ashtrays.
Yeah, sure.
And it was her engagement ring. A load of stuff that had been bought for Emma, my daughter, for her christening.
Terrible.
It might have even been something you gave her. There was like a couple of Tiffany things.
Yep.
There was a wristband of like pearl. A pearl, not what do you call it? A pearl bracelet.
Pearl bracelet.
I mean, just some really lovely stuff.
Terrible.
And but the engagement ring, which I'd bought her in New York, was an estate ring. I could never replace. I managed to get a replica out of it. And of course, when I got in touch with my sister and I said, "Well, we've only just moved in here. I haven't even got contents insurance or anything. Have you got some kind of insurance?" And do you know what she said?
No,
nothing.
Good God.
So I didn't get anything back. I didn't get any money out of it at all.
You've been quite unlucky with burglaries.
Well, I have.
Yes.
Yeah, I have.
Yes.
I think it's just one of those things. I think most people have.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's been lostography.
Yeah.
Things that have been lost or stolen. Quite a lot of stories there.
That's
actually.
right. Absolutely.
Not bad at all. Yeah. Lots more coming up next.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Today you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain. So before we go do it all again, you better catch your own train. You better catch
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out. It's Ask Porky, of course, tomorrow. So if you've got any problems in life, any questions that you need answering, any dilemmas that you need an answer to,
indeed,
today is the time to start sending those questions in. If you hashtag them Ask Porky, you can do them now. But we'll be sending out some stuff on Facebook and Twitter a little bit later on.
Absolutely.
Peter says this: MG, no way Porky knows what The Dude and The Big Lebowski are. Well, I've talked about that movie before, haven't I?
Yeah. What is it?
The Big Lebowski. It's one of those great movies that you have to see.
Yes.
I'm tempted to lend you this DVD.
Well, what's it about?
Well, it's about this guy who lives in California.
Right.
And it's just this kind of mad, crazy sort of world in which he lives.
Okay.
And it's not really about anything.
Right.
But it's about him. It's very funny.
Okay.
Very
and
funny.
why did you compare it to me and the car robbery?
Well, he gets his car stolen in the film.
Right.
And one of the things that happens when they retrieve the car.
Yes.
Which unfortunately has been, used by homeless people and all sorts of horrible things have happened to him. He had some credence in there. And that's why I was making the comparison.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, fine.
And they talk about whether the credence was still there. Did they take the credence? Did they not take the credence? All that kind of thing.
Right. Now, I asked you about the Olympic parade.
Yes.
Right, and your verdict is...
You're talking about the Paralympic parade.
Well, it was both today.
Yeah.
It was both. It was the Olympic parade and the Paralympic parade.
Well,
yes.
all I know is I went to watch the news at 6 o'clock tonight. And I put it on TV.
Yes.
And it was not on at 6 o'clock. And instead it said the news was going to be on at 6:30.
Right.
And instead there was this bizarre sort of parade going on.
Yes.
Well, there seems to be an awful lot of people in Manchester, so I'm very happy for them that they went along and enjoyed it.
Yes.
But that guy who does Match of the Day 2 seemed to be comparing it. And it was just a kind of... It just seemed to me to be, one, a little bit after the fact, and two... Just a sort of a procession of people who were kept being called heroes and all that, and I'm just like, well, it's great, and I'm very proud that the Team GB did quite well in the Paralympics and in the Olympics. But it just seemed a bit pointless, really.
Well, I totally agree. To me, the parade is all about when you get off the plane and there's a coach waiting there, and you get on the coach and then you go parading around and you celebrate. When they
got a picture of Jessica Ennis Hill at the parade on the front page of the Times, taking a selfie, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But then they do it all on pages 18 and 19. So, I guess.
But the reason she's focused is because she's announced her retirement, you see. So she's the sort of the golden girl of the moment. She's announced her retirement. But why the parade's taking place weeks after the Olympics, I've no idea.
But also, it's this idea of heroes. I mean, it's a totally overused word now.
It is, I agree.
I mean, they're Olympic athletes.
And that's their job.
Whether they are Paralympians or whether they are in the able-bodied Olympics or whatever you wish to call it, they're athletes who've done very well, and congratulations to them. But I'm sorry, I don't really think they're heroes, do you?
No, not really.
I think that's an overused word.
They've been provided with some public funds to try and improve themselves in a discipline in which they excel,
right?
And they've got to be the best, which is very good. But I agree with you. It's not as heroic as a soldier who's fighting a war against ISIS terrorists or something like that.
Staring down the barrel of a gun, or being a police officer out in a place which is
However,
not very nice.
we mustn't be churlish. I mean, what I'm saying is, the FA Cup winners have their parade the next day, not 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
The Test cricket team, when they won the Ashes here, and that was disgraceful scenes of drunken cricketers.
I think one of the reasons that they left
that was the day after the last Test, I think.
But I think one of the reasons they left it this long was because they waited for the Paralympics to finish. I mean, we just heard old Tim Vickery telling us that they're just going to get the Maracana Stadium back because the Paralympics was going on until relatively recently.
Sure.
So I can understand that making it a delayed thing, but it just seemed whoever made that decision, I think, made the wrong decision.
I do. Why couldn't they have had two parades? Why couldn't they have had the parade for the team who won the record number of goals? They come back, have a parade, and then when the Paralympics people come back, have a second parade. Why couldn't they do that?
Well, they could have done that.
Yeah,
but, I mean, I guess
exactly.
what they wanted to do was to make sure that there was not such a differentiation, because perhaps they wouldn't have got the biggest crowd if they did it that way. I don't know.
Maybe.
But it was raining and people went out and seemed to enjoy it. But I just think, to have it this far after the Olympics themselves and to keep referring to them as heroes,
yes,
I just think it's a bit over the top, really.
Yes,
I know there will be people that say, "Oh, you sound churlish about it." I don't mean to sound churlish. I just think it's it's a bit much.
No, I totally agree with you. I think there is questions to be asked about the way it was organised and whether or not it was appropriate at the right time and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly right.
Right now then. We
haven't got a lot of time left,
No, I haven't got a lot of time left. Now, the other thing that I need to talk to you about, right?
Yeah.
I showed you this picture earlier, and you couldn't spot what was unique about it, right?
Well, you know what? I looked at the picture and I thought that does look like a familiar picture. It was only when you told me why that I realised why it was a familiar picture.
So I'll explain to our millions of listeners, right?
Tragically, this is going to be the third time, or the third hour in a row where the Beatles have come up.
Well, unfortunately, they come into every aspect of life, and they do. But I showed you a picture, and it shows on the right-hand side of this picture is Jeffrey Archer, the renowned author.
Disgraced Lord. I think we can call him, can't we?
Well, I'm not going to call him Disgraced Lord.
Why not?
I'd call him the renowned author.
Well, Disgraced Lord, surely.
He wasn't a lord, was he, when he was disgraced, was he?
Yeah, because he wouldn't have been given his peerage after that, would he?
No, he wouldn't. You're absolutely right, yeah.
But the bizarre thing is, of course, you can commit a felony or a criminal act and still retain your peerage.
Exactly, yeah. But, I mean, he claimed to have been such a good student at Oxford that he won an Oxford Blue in running or something like that, and everybody kind of disputed that for years after. Anyway, the picture shows him with a collection tin, okay? And then the four men in the middle of this picture are the Beatles, right? And then on the left-hand side, there's a callow youth with dark hair who was also rattling a collection tin.
Right.
Now, Mr. Archer explains this picture in a publication over the weekend. I watched the Beatles' progress through the 60s. I was the instigator of their charity appearance at Brasenose College, Oxford.
Oh, yes.
Which, of course, is where I went for my interview at Oxford.
Yeah, but it didn't get in.
I turned it down.
Well, I don't believe you turned it down.
Politics, philosophy and economics, I didn't want to do it, so I turned it down, OK? So he then goes on to say, because this is the sort of thing that Lord Jeffrey Archer says, meeting McCartney and Lennon, it was obvious to me either one of them was clever enough to have gone to Oxford.
Well, is it Jeffrey Archer said that?
Yeah.
He's such an unlikable man, isn't he?
Exactly. It was
Jeffrey
obvious
used to specialise in having his parties at his penthouse flat overlooking
right.
Tower Bridge.
That's right.
Which was a proper penthouse, by the way.
It was,
he would always serve Krug and Shepherd's Pie.
That's right, yeah, absolutely, always. Yeah.
Man of the people.
And he would say to people looking for the loo, turn left at the Monet and right at the Calanero or whatever it was, you know what I mean?
Caravaggio,
something like that, yeah. Anyway, he goes on to say, I'm a huge fan of Frank Sinatra. I saw him 5 times, and there was a London date when we were lucky enough to go to dinner with him, but the concert that was in a class of its own for me was at the Royal Albert Hall in 1989 with Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. and Liza Minnelli, plus the 40-piece orchestra. Now, the point of this picture is that you've got Archer, you've got the Beatles, and the other Callow Youth.
Right.
And I said to you, where have you seen that picture before? And it was, it was this great charity they were collecting for. It doesn't even say which one it is, actually, but it's about...
But why has this picture suddenly been... I mean, the reason, of course, that the picture... What?
It was Oxfam.
But why has the picture suddenly surfaced now, though?
Well, the picture surfaced now because it was a feature on Jeffrey Archer, and he's got it in his collection, so he showed them this picture.
Right. And the reason that I recognised the picture, of course, as you explained to me, was because it used to be...
but you see, you didn't. This is the point. I came to you and I said, when did you last see this picture?
No, but what I'm saying to
you couldn't guess.
No, I couldn't get it. That's what I'm saying. But the reason I realised that it was then familiar, though, was when you said it used to be up in Sir Nicholas Lloyd's office.
Absolutely.
In the Daily Express.
Absolutely.
And every time you'd walk in there, you'd see it.
Yeah, exactly. In Sir Nick's office, there was a picture of Eve Pollard with their son when he was a baby, right, on a big picture on the wall. Below that was this picture, because the mystery man in this picture is Sir Nicholas Lloyd, who was in those days Nick Lloyd, undergraduate at Oxford, with Jeffrey Archer, who was also part of this charity fundraising event.
But
you didn't get it.
No, I didn't get it. No, I'm perfectly happy to admit that.
Yes.
It's not as if it's some kind of failing. I just said, I looked at the picture, I knew I'd seen it before, but I couldn't have told you where.
Exactly.
But when you told me that, but here's something interesting, right? Because one of the reasons that you do right-hand pages and left-hand pages in newspapers, right, is because your eye generally goes to the right.
Of course.
When I looked at that picture, I was looking at the Beatles and the man on the right.
That's right.
I wasn't looking at the man on the left.
No, that's right.
So if you ever want to be seen in a photograph, you should always stand
on the right.
You stand on the left, actually, so that you appear on the right. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I see what you mean, yeah.
Because your eye, generally speaking, unless somebody who's left-handed would tell me it goes the other way. If you're left-handed, you look at the left-hand side first. But I always look at the right-hand side of a picture.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we look at the right-hand side of everything. That's the way the eye goes.
Which, funnily enough, means that when I look at the new picture of us on Facebook, I'm on the right and you're on the left.
That's right.
So people will look more at me than they will at you.
Well, they look more at you because you're gargantuan, whereas I am...
Well, I do look a lot bigger than you, that's true.
I'm the better part of the portrait because of my stylish attire.
Portrait?
Yes.
Portrait?
It's a portrait.
Portrait?
It's a portrait.
It's got a T in it.
That's what I said, yeah.
You said portrait.
No, I didn't.
Proud Dad says this, I completely agree about the Heroes Parade. There's nothing heroic about being an athlete. Admirable, but not heroic. Well, thank you very much for that. That's from Rob.
Yeah.
We're pretty much nearly at the end. There's a little bit of the show left. We'll be doing Ask Porky tomorrow, Porky Vision the day after that, and then a quiz. I think we might be doing a quiz on the moon, aren't we? Isn't that the quiz we decided to do yesterday?
I didn't decide anything yesterday. No, not at all. No.
Okay, well, we'll let you have a think about that.
244,000 miles away it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that may or may not be right. Certainly, a lot of people were on Twitter earlier today saying things like, I was in Ipswich at the weekend looking for that IKEA. There isn't one.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because you claimed that you'd bought some stuff from IKEA in
Well,
Ipswich.
it could have
been
one. It's somewhere else. It would be some other sort of place. But
there might be one in Norwich, apparently.
No, I wouldn't have driven to Norwich. That's too far away. It's miles away, Norwich from Ipswich, you know. You think it's in East Anglia.
Yeah.
Norwich is about 100 miles away. It's miles away. I mean, it's difficult enough getting from Ipswich to Newmarket. That's about 35 miles.
Yeah.
But then to go on to Norfolk to Norwich...
Well, I mean, East Anglia, Norfolk and Suffolk are two separate counties, aren't they?
Of course they are, yeah.
That's like saying you're going to go from Gloucestershire to Wiltshire.
Yes,
it's a very different kettle of fish.
I agree. By the way, you know, like tonight we did the listography on the lostography, and we talked about theft and all that kind of stuff. And do you remember last week I highlighted the fact that they were unveiling a new statue of Morecambe and Wise in Blackpool?
Yes, you did, yeah.
And guess what?
Go on.
As Eric Morecambe's widow attended that ceremony today, people broke into her house.
No.
Yeah.
That's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is terrible.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that tomorrow because we've run out of time. This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes.
Look at the light! Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne, podcast from the two Mikes. And she says, thank you for paying me £30 for cleaning your apartment. It's very good. for another £30, you can have sex with me every week. So every week, on a Tuesday, he was always now late for work. So I said, I want some chicken, please, which is a value.